win.
Who are you guys?
We're you, dude!
You're metal, dude!
Dudes!
Deliberating. Delivering. Delivering.
Dogface.
Delivering.
Dogface. I'm the dude!
One minute, dude.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
You're a lying Dogface pony shoulder. You said you were, but now you gotta be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you.
3, 2, 1, fight!
Who are you guys?
We're you, dude!
We're live, dudes.
There we are.
Tuesday, August 5th. This is the 47th stream. For those who are counting, can we count to 777?
We got an excellent one for you guys tonight. We got Rose from Rose777 has brought in Luke, who's developing his own theory and cosmology. And she's brought him in to air that out and discuss it. So, real excited for this one.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to introduce you. I just love putting different minds together. And what really caught my attention was that Luke's unified theory, which is very familiar to people who study field theory. It's adding in the scalar element, and it explains or could provide a possible explanation for what the lunar wave actually is. And I'm also interested in hearing him hash it out with you guys about how the luminaries would act given the new information we received with Jaren's trip to Antarctica with the 24-hour sun and distances and sizes of these luminaries. I previously thought that Jaren's trip to Antarctica solidified that the small and local idea was debunked, and Luke says that he still has an explanation for that. So I'm really curious about that too. So lunar wave and
the explanation include the second sun, though.
I don't know. Let's find out. I'll stop.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
Luke.
Hello, everybody. So with this theory, there is some strange, optical geometrics that could happen because this implements something called kind of harmonic shells. They're similar to what Schrodinger initially provided whenever he was talking about probability density clouds and things like that, but this has more of a actual physical effect, so everything can end up having shells that kind of create not necessarily optical illusions, but definitely different kind of optical effects that can absolutely show a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, in the Arctic Circle, during whenever it's all the way up north or all the way south, whether it's a globe or whether it's a flat earth. Let me get the document for the
While you're getting that document, I just remembered another aspect of the theory that I never mentioned to Ben, which is that there's like a sun within a sun, and that Crow's footage caught your eye. And then when we went to look at the original footage, just to make sure that it didn't have something to do with the processing, this circular shape, we all kind of recognized it as being there. So you should also explain that as well.
Okay, absolutely. So have any of y'all ever heard of a quarter neon?
Say it again.
A quarter neon?
A quarter neon?
Right.
No.
So essentially, in 1865, there was a gentleman named James Maxwell that presented the idea of quaternions basically being the pretty much the fundamental like building block of just reality in general. They start with atomic structures, go all the way across to what he described as the sea of tiny vortices, which is basically because this was way before Einstein or anybody else was, delivering their theories. It was still whenever the whole ether aspect was like still talked about, still thought about. That was still the going field theory. Um, when he proposed that, he was proposing it as basically a field of quaternions. What these are three rotational aspect field functions with one scalar aspect. Um, he at the time he couldn't prove that they existed basically, and they were kind of way advanced for the time. Um, so what had happened was there were three gentlemen that basically broke his equations down, and they all kind of went their separate ways. So Einstein essentially took the structure or the what you could consider like the skeleton of the equation. And then basically the rising quantum physicists at the time took the energy, the soul of the equation. Both of them ended up leaving the body behind. This is, in my opinion, as to why quantum field theory and relativity have yet to be able to unify, because neither one of them realize that one, they're missing the original body of the equation, and two, they don't realize that they're already, two halves of one whole, so they'll never be able to unify. Or really, it's just thirds. Um, but whenever I was going through all of this, I realized that after tracking back all of the work that everybody's done, realized it went back to the whole quaternions. Then I realized that in I think it was the late 20s, we got confirmation on one of the theories, or basically one of the tests, that light transfers momentum, right? So like as a photon is interacting with things, it will actually transfer momentum onto that object. Because of that, we came up with another theory, which was later proved, that light also creates pressure. Well, when you understand that light is essentially just um, basically a ball of energy, right? It's excess energy that has been released from an electron when it has exited its excitement stage. Um, that means that energy creates pressure, and that's something that we've never really addressed before. Basically, nobody in the scientific community, from what I've seen so far. So this started the whole adventure of trying to assign these values to this quaternion that was too um, confusing, too complicated at the time. Um, so the scalar aspect of it, that is actually the pressure. That is the pressure field, right? So each of these individual balls, they pulse energy, and they actually send it out as pressure waves. This is are any of y'all familiar with the tests that like Tesla actually did, and like for example the Colorado Springs experiment? So he was sending out basically these, these EM pulses, and he was getting weird like non-Hertzian waves that he was getting back. Those were actually pressure waves within the scalar field that he was getting back. That's why my pressure waves, I've named them Teslian pressure waves after him, because he was the one that first discovered it. So you have pressure waves and you have rebound waves. These work together constructively. They may interfere, or they may completely deconstruct. So through this whole method and my bigger theory, I was actually able to derive the entire periodic table all based off of these values without using any kind of atomic structure whatsoever. Because of that, where these basically stabilize at their certain points, and those points are actually where the elements are. They actually continue all the way up to 150. Once we get past 118, using the Hadron Collider, in my opinion, is basically, throwing whatever you might have show up into a furnace. So I really don't think we can go past 118 using that. After that, we have to use like just very surgical precision on doing these elements. But once we actually get past 132, there's actually a weird thing that happens within the torsional aspect of the element. When I first saw it, I originally thought, instead of it pulsing out, I wonder if it starts pulsing inward. And then that's what led into this whole idea about what it is, because with these quarter neons, you have a core, right? Basically, just imagine on the inside is a more condensed version of this energy. As they send out pressure waves and they interact and they interfere and they construct or deconstruct, it basically builds shell walls. These shell walls can be layered multiple times. In the photos from what, or the videos from what Crow is showing, you can actually see a more condensed area inside of the sun, and that's what I believe is not what you would consider like a hydrogen core. It's just what a quarter neon core would look like if it was the size of the sun. What you're actually seeing with the sun is if you, and this is one of the things I've gotten hesitant about saying, if you want to say it from a scientific aspect, you could say it's a mirage. If you want to say it from a sci-fi aspect, you could say it's a hologram or a projection. It's real. It's just these shell interactions are causing it to magnify the actual size and look of the sun. One interesting thing is I think that the sun might actually be made out of element 144 because um I haven't gotten too deep into it to say definitively yet, but I'm pretty sure it actually is 144, and that's where we start getting into weird coincidences with sacred geometry because, as everybody knows, Metatron's cube, um, that is actually a perfect slice of a quarter neon of what element 144 would be. And I just find it weird because there's a lot of talk behind, or there's a lot of like alternate names to Metatron's cube for it being like the, Sun cube or all these other different names like that. There's some different rotational aspects I'm looking into. So far, it seems like the sun very much could be element 144 due to the fact that its magnetic poles are actually reverse of what they should be because of the rotation of the sun itself. I don't know how, like, kind of like the right hand rule with electricity and how magnetic fields form around them. Um, but as the light coming from the sun interacts with its own shell and then interacts with the Earth's shell, whether it is round or whether it is flat, this very much could cause like, for example, if it's flat, yes, it could cause a geometric interaction to make you see a 24-hour sun in the South Pole if it just goes up. It'll always cause any kind of arcing path, stuff like that. Seeing a 24-hour sun in the Arctic or the Antarctic doesn't rule anything out, honestly. And it's actually very much expected in both models, in my opinion.
Explain why.
I mean, obviously, if you have a heliocentric globe model, of course you're going to have the 24-hour sun in the north and in the south. But with a like where they say that the 24-hour sun definitely like knocked out the flat Earth model. If the sun is a quarter neon, which is looking like it is, it doesn't, because there's always going to be that spherical to spherical geometric interaction between the way that the light works and how it curves and how it arcs.
So you're kind of talking about that where the refraction is as it's going up and down makes a hot point.
It could. I haven't 100% nailed down exactly how focused it'll be, how, like, if it'll lag behind. Because, I mean, as of right now, I think it's, what, when the sun hits horizon, it's actually past the horizon by 8 minutes already, just because of the time delay between the sun and the earth. There's a lot of, there's a lot of optical effects that we need to take account now. For example, I am leaning actually more towards possibly having a flat Earth, just because the current model for predicting like redshift at the horizon does not account for as much redshift as there actually is. Due to the way that these shells will layer, there's a very good possibility that being flat might actually be the only way it can be. Because the standard model doesn't account for the amount of redshift that is actually there. Even whenever I did the original calculations of it being sphere with the shells, even that didn't account for the amount of redshift that we actually measure. It would have to be flat, so that way the scalar gradient is able to knock down enough light to basically shift it red enough.
So what we're talking about here then is like a basic molecule where you have a core nucleus, which would be your protons and neutrons, and then there's numerous outer shells that are have specific effects. Your final shell being the valence shell, telling you what other molecules it'll hook up with and whatnot, but the same basic concept, that the same basic setup.
This goes smaller than that. This is
Well, yeah, I realize it's a smaller version. As above, so below. It's the same basic setup.
Right. It's I mean, we're talking about even the strong and weak nuclear force that's holding together quarks, anti-quarks, all of that. I mean, basically a regular atomic structure is just the quaternionic version of the smaller field function that's going on. It's kind of like how some people say that everything is just a toroid within a toroid within a toroid, and it just keeps going larger and larger and larger. But they miss a little bit of the fact that toroids are just the magnetic field being created by quaternions themselves. You're missing the scalar gyroscope inside of it.
And how? Go ahead, Rose.
Really quick with the sun, it being like a macrocosm of the quaternion. So there's the inside part of the sun and the outside part, and it, like a torus, has that expanding and contracting aspect to it with like the breath. So like there's like the biblical idea of the breath and the spirit, and then there's the torus field idea with like the dielectric hyperboloid, and then there's the idea of like respiration in the lungs. Could you explain how to fit the sun in with that breathing component and how that translates to what the lunar wave is and why we would see it?
So specifically with the lunar wave, this is actually just an interaction straight from the sun. So these pressure waves, as you have the original wave, you could imagine it as breathing out. when you have the rebound wave, you can imagine breathing it in, but an excess amount of pressure will escape out, and this continues traveling. This is basically what sets up the density of the gradients. As it travels out, it will actually interact with the moon, which, as of right now, I'm thinking that the moon very well could be element 138, which needs that actual pressure in order to basically do its thing. This is why the relationship between the moon and the sun has more than just a straight line visual effect. Because I mean, if you look at a half moon, sometimes the sun's not actually in the correct direction for it to be a half moon. Um, when we're talking about the whole new moon, red moons, even lunar eclipses, sometimes the sun's not actually in the correct position for it. But when we're talking about pressure waves, I mean, these are going out multi-directional, so it actually takes that pressure wave and converts it to its own energy for the most part. But you can say that the pressure wave going out and then essentially rebounding in, this is kind of like a breathing in and a breathing out. The frequency is basically just the timing of you could say the frequency is the heartbeat of the whole system. I mean, it works the same way whether we're talking about actual wave functions or not.
And how does this tie into the lunar wave?
So the lunar wave you're actually seeing is a just a pressure wave from the sun. The moon completely relies on the pressure output from the sun. So the wave that you're seeing is a pressure wave traveling across the surface of the moon. It's traveling across the shell of the moon.
So these, what are you calling these things again? These tiny little
The quarter neons.
quarter neons.
Yeah.
These quarter neons are then what pure? You're saying pure energy?
They are more a actual field function. What I mean by that is they are the geometric shape of the actual individual field functions. So like how everybody keeps trying to use geometry to find like the actual perfect shape to like show a vacuum, where they have like the two pyramids and they invert them and then basically put them in the middle of each other to show like equal pull from each direction.
All right.
The quarter neon did that from the very get-go. That actual shape is within inside of the quarter neon to begin with, but it typically sits in a negative state unless it is excited, which it will then flip polarity to positive.
Is there some kind of a cavitation that happens at that point then?
Not that I have seen so far. It just seems to me that there is a flip in polarity. Eventually there could be, so if like it actually has a torsional aspect to it, which not all elements do have a torsional aspect. If it doesn't, it won't be affected by it. If it does, eventually it could just turn its rotation to correct itself.
I hear it side by side comment. Take over, Marcus.
Yeah, so I think we're at the point where we're hearing this word quarter neon, and we're like, haven't heard that before. Could you?
It's old. It's old.
Yeah, could you explain the history of that? Who was writing about that? how did it fall out of fashion, and why haven't high school graduates in the US of A heard of this? Is it a mathematical thing specifically, a physics thing?
Give me 1 second to pull up the document.
Because you mentioned a James Clark Maxwell. Is it Clerk or Clark?
Yes, Clerk.
Clerk, James Clerk Maxwell.
Yeah.
And he's working in the 1850s, writing about math and physics.
Yes, he was. So he is considered to be the father of electromagnetism.
Okay.
He's the one that made the connection between electricity and magnetism. But when he originally released his papers, they had the original quarter neon equation in there, which got it was too complicated for the time. So then there was 3 individuals. Trying to find the actual. There we go. So there were 3 individuals that ended up breaking it down. One was Heaviside, one was Gibbs, and one was Hertz, which I'm sure most people know of Hertz because of obviously Hertz whenever measuring electricity or just sound, however. After that, we get to Bohr, Planck, and Einstein. This is basically the first generation that uses the watered down equations. This is where we actually get the separation to where basically one's using the skeletal remains of the equation, one is using just the energy of the equation, and then the actual body of the equation itself was left over. But so he originally developed it in the 1860s. There might have been one gentleman that was working on it before him, but he's basically the main one that formalized it the best at the time, even though it was torn apart anyway. But then directly after that, because I mean, you got to think it's the 1880s, 1890s. There was a lot of industrial revolution going on. I don't necessarily blame them for tearing it down because they were just trying to move everything along as best they could. So they tried to simplify it the best that they could. And ever since then, nobody's ever gone back to try to rework his equations. But yet there's, like, for example, in 2019, Golden Gate University did a very interesting test, which I would say even though they're accredited, I would say that this experiment would not have been done at MIT or anything like that because they would have never got funding for it. What they did was they put ferrofluid and a piezo crystal inside of a Faraday cage. Then they put that inside of a vacuum chamber. Then they hit it with a pulse from basically a Tesla coil from a distance away. Under the standard model, there should have been nothing going on with inside of that Faraday cage. I mean, all of us know exactly what a Faraday cage does.
Keeps Nicolas Cage away.
Yes, yeah, that's a little side plus that it does.
Beneficial.
Important. Nobody likes his movies anymore. I mean,
That's fair. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
You heard us, Juan. You fucking heard us.
So we're going back to the 1860s. We're looking at figures like Hertz, Bohr, Planck, and then Einstein comes along and kind of just scrambles everybody's brain. He becomes the literal poster child for
looking at the chat,
Marcus, physics, and everything.
What's up,
I see a lot of the chat.
And so when I originally went into this adventure, I was trying to be as non-biased as possible, and that's kind of what let me be able to see how it kind of all unraveled from the last generation we had, which I mean Hawkins was part of that generation. Then the generation before that.
You're talking Stephen Hawkins, the guy with it was a Lou Gehrig's disease who should have lived to be 26 years old, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the first generation being Einstein. But what's interesting is I started looking into after I basically laid all of this out, I started looking into what Einstein did towards his later years. And if you look at his quotes and actually look at his attempt at the unified field theory, he knew he was wrong. And in my opinion, if he could have, he probably would have pulled relativity back. He knew how fragile it was to begin with. And he even went as far as doing the ultimate taboo, which is redefining mass, which kind of made me feel a little bit better about the fact that I did that. So I can't hate him. I can't judge him for it because he at least at the end tried to go back around.
Sure. So we're dealing with we're dealing with topics of history, the topics of physics, math, and science, and all of these things. And with our limited education, we're hearing these things for the first time and wondering, oh, why haven't I heard this before? And the answer might be that you'd have to study physics in college before you'd be looking at equations from Planck and this other guy. Who wrote the quaternion equation?
Maxwell.
Okay.
So once his quaternion equation was split apart, it really wasn't long after that it was no longer taught in schools. I mean, most people now only hear about it whenever they actually look into his original treaty that he wrote. When you're taught about electricity in any kind of schooling, or whether you go to actual, college for physics itself, when you're talking about electromagnetism and everything that is completely combined within that, you will hear about his equations. You will not hear about his quaternion equations because they were torn apart. They went to E and B fields.
What are those fields? You said E
and B.
M V. What does that stand for?
E and B. So like just the letter E and the letter B.
Okay. Earth and beyond. What does E and B stand for?
I don't actually think that the letters represent anything. I think they're just part of how they tore down the equations. I don't think they have like an actual name for the E or B.
It's like an X or a Y, sulfur.
Basically,
E
yeah.
B. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a variable.
Okay. You talked earlier about something that might appear like a mirage or holographic. Is that similar to driving down Route 66 through a hot Arizona desert, and then you see kind of the rippling in the distance? Kind of looks like
right. So right. So what you're seeing obviously isn't there. It's just an optical illusion going on.
Okay.
So like the sun isn't actually the size that it looks. There's a smaller actual part inside of it that is the physical core.
Okay. And that's sort of like the ground level thing that we see with our own eyes. And are you saying that's similar to what Crow is captured on camera with the so-called lunar wave? I don't know what is the term for that now. It was released as lunar wave, and he might have said that he doesn't know that that's a great title for it because he's seen it across other bodies in the sky.
We just recognize it's a total misnomer. So people can call it a space wave, a firmament wave, a plasma wave, whatever they want. It's just that it's not across the moon. It's across everything because it was captured in front of Saturn and Jupiter already.
Okay. And Luke, is that what you refer to it as? Or do you have a special term for that?
I call it, you can either call it a pressure wave or a Teslian wave.
Okay.
So why wouldn't this happen more often then?
So in order to
such a small duration, because the lunar wave only happens like every 3 months or something?
So there are variables that I have. One of the most important one is something called coherence, which in quantum mechanics there is basically the opposite. It's called decoherence. It is basically the rate of the particle either going quantum, going superposition, or it is the rate at which it might disappear into the quantum realm altogether. But under my theory, coherence really drives a lot of different things. It drives how structured something is. It drives how much memory it has. Like imagine you smack Jello, right? Obviously it wiggles around, but it maintains its structure, right? That is basically the memory that is encoded within the actual atomic structure of it itself. So we got structure, memory. This can lower or raise during certain times. It might make it easier if it, say, if the sun's having some kind of other interaction, or if it's just going through a normal cycle that it has. It could even be like a polarity flip, like we see. I think it's the polarity flip is every 11 years for it. It makes it easier to see scalar effects like this, but most of the time scalar effects are only going to be going on in the background. You're not really going to see the deeper structure that's going on. It's kind of like if relativity is understood, how much do you actually see in your daily life of things being bent by the mass of other objects?
Never.
Right.
In fact, you can't make that happen scientifically in any way, shape, or form. That's why it's still a theory.
Right. At least not in a safe way.
So I don't have a problem with the sun being structured this way. This is, like I said, the normal structure of any molecule. The only thing that has weight, the whole reason that it's the atomic table of elements is because the only thing that has weight to it that we can actually see is the proton. You can't really see electrons. People think for whatever reason when they say electron microscope, you can see an electron. No, they're firing electrons at things and then seeing how it bounces off and creating a shape off the bounce.
Right.
And
I actually have electron shells.
Yeah.
So basically what Schrodinger models as his probability density clouds, it's actual shells, which are interactions between neutrons, protons, and then the electron, which makes it basically in a shell shape instead of having the typical shape that we understand it as.
Yeah. Where my issue comes in is what's drawing this energy being projected. And then number two, and this is something I have a problem with everybody that talks about light, because very, very simply, I can create light, and I understand how it works. You can take, a basic Edison bulb, and you run a bunch of electricity through it, and you put filament in there that can't take that much electricity, so that excites the particles, and it makes them break apart. This is part of why you have to fill the light bulb with an inert gas, because if there's oxygen in there, it'll burn apart in a blink. But if you have an inert gas in there, so it's got nothing to take them particles and float them away with, it'll maintain integrity for quite a while.
And we still have the first light bulb still going right now?
Yeah, before the agreement to make light bulbs that didn't last.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, what's going on there, and you can replicate that with just a torch and a piece of metal, is you just heat that piece of metal up, which is just pounding a whole bunch of electrons into it, and making it more and more excited. And then it'll end up glowing and turning into light and producing light. When that happens, the particles, you are definitely losing particles. So those particles were the light. And some of that, it breaks away, goes and finds ground, because that's what energy does. There's got to be a negative side that directs that positive side. If you don't have a negative side, and this is where my overall question on this comes from, if I don't have a negative side, that positive side's got nowhere to go. If I have no voltage, it doesn't matter how many amperage I have, it's not going to go anywhere. And so there's got to be a negative to draw that positive. So whenever you're looking at a system holistically, it's like they're recognizing the energy source without realizing that without the neutral is a more accurate term as an electrician. Your neutral that's going to send that back and do that trade-off. This is no different than a galvanic cell battery. In order for that cathode to produce power, the anode actually breaks down and creates a negative, and then charges that negative over to the cathode, and then the positive portion goes and trades. Where the two come back together, the particle becomes whole again. And this is what's happening with light. Light is finding its other half. It's going and finding the missing piece of itself. So what is creating that pull?
Well, all quarter neons have a negative and a positive pole on them. The field itself has energy within it. I mean, that's what Tesla was saying all along. So when we're talking about, as you're heating it, you are causing entropy, basically. You are causing a destabilization of the entire molecular structure inside of there. If there is enough coherence within inside of it, it will remember its structure, and as it does remember its structure, it will then pull in whatever energy it has left over from the surrounding area, because the entire surrounding area has energy. Everything is the quarter neons, whether they are which have the negative and positive polarities of them. So it's just really pulling in energy from around it. I mean, this is for the most part no different than, so the scalar field itself is not 100% like the Higgs field, but it is basically the same purpose of the Higgs field. Like, this is where energy comes from. Once it's condensed by pressure, then it starts turning into the different particles, which have different purposes. Like, I mean, we can talk about, like we said before, quarks, antiquarks, protons, neutrons, electrons, photons, muons, nuons. It's all just different energy at different sizes based off of different compressions from other interactions. This is what causes quantum to begin with. Quantum can only be done in certain environments, and it is whenever there is no actual other interaction going on, because all of these particles are putting off pressure. If they don't have anything to rebound that pressure from, then the energy just spreads out, and the particle itself turns into what they would view as a probability density cloud. But it was kind of always a cloud to begin with. It was just pressurized because of rebound pressure. But there's always energy all around. So as long as you don't cause incoherence, which is basically the point at which it's not going to be able to retain its structure, it will always be pulling in energy to retain its structure. So just because you sent out light doesn't mean that it's not going to pull back energy after it's done, because all of the quarter neons have positive and negative polarities to them.
And this is based off of a mathematical equation.
Yeah, I have everything laid out in the larger theory, which at some point I can give y'all the link to it if you want. I have a couple other documents added up there as well with the larger theory.
Is there anything that would be helpful to see if you wanted to share your screen? Because you said that you had a 147-page paper that was published. Has it been published?
Yes, it's published now. Give me 1 second.
I don't know if we'll have the ability to screen share tonight. We're kind of doing an introduction to the topic. We have some folks in chat who are trying to catch up to some pretty heady concepts. And have you had the opportunity to explain this to blue collar Minnesotans? You know. at the mechanic shop who want to change your oil and make sure your fluids are topped off?
No, I haven't gotten to talk to many people about it yet. Like I just last Friday night, I did the first episode on this, which was with the Cult of Conspiracy. Rose and I have talked about it a couple times. I talked about it with Crow, but for the most part, just them and y'all are the only ones I've been able to like have a verbal conversation about this with.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight to talk about these very important concepts.
Oh, no problem.
This is going back to college. It's a bit of a one-night summer school class. Will there be a test at the end?
No, there will not.
Okay, so like, what is energy? You've said the word energy a lot.
I don't know if you can really put a definition on what energy is without kind of causing a like a little rotation. Like you could say energy is life, you could say life is energy, you could say that energy is just I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you could actually put a definition on what energy is.
Does the sun in your model create energy? Is it the source of energy?
No, the field itself is the source of energy. The sun is just a large collection of it. So as waves go out, waves come in. It either loses a little bit of energy, gains a little bit of energy. It all happens at an extremely fast rate.
And you haven't said anything about the moon yet beyond the concept of the lunar wave, kind of a ripply mirage effect going over it that's been captured by cameras. How does the moon fit into this?
The moon is basically just I wouldn't say it's a negative aspect. I would say it just solely relies on the sun's interactions. With it being element 138, so far from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like it carries any kind of luminous attributes naturally. It has to actually be I'm not going to say excited, but it needs the pressure waves from the sun in order to allow itself to illuminate. It's not based off of reflection.
So the moon is not made of cheese?
Sadly, no.
It's not milk.
Oh, but there is a lot in random caves around the U.S.
Yes, the Great Cheese Caves.
Mostly in Missouri. Missouri has most of the cheese caves. I keep track of these things.
That's good. If anything ever goes down, just know I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah, you got to know where the cheese stash is. That will be the first place to hit. Yeah, the government keeps it there.
I know they messed up the craft recipe. I know that for sure. Now the only one that actually tastes decent is the deluxe version. Go figure.
No, this is real cheese. It's part of what the government does as it's a price control and emergency. Quit picking on the cats, Bubba. He's such an unruly cuss. Wants to chew on everything. As part, they buy up a bunch of it and then they put it in these storages. And obviously, in case of emergency, then we have a store and cheese. Good cheese done right, you can sit there for 50 years. It doesn't matter, and it also keeps the price controls in check.
So we don't need to take notes because
that.
we're recording this. We're interacting with chat a little bit tonight. We're recording this. We can play it back, listen to it again and again as much as we needed to. If you guys have questions, put them in chat. We'll get to some questions. I have a question. I like cheese. I like my cheese to be melted. If I put my cheese, in a glass container and I seal it up and I leave it out for an afternoon on a good sunny day, and my cheese melts, what causes my cheese to melt?
Okay. Say that again.
I want to melt some cheese. I put my cheese in a glass jar and I seal the glass jar and I leave it out on a sunshine-filled evening, when the sun is setting, because I want to have a warm cheese dinner. What causes the cheese to melt? Is it the sun? Is it heat from the sun?
Is it clear glass?
Yeah.
And yes, a major part of it is the heat from the sun, but also you have compression within inside of the jar because of it heating up in there and the air molecules expanding.
Okay, because sometimes I'll just leave it on my dashboard, drive west towards the sun, and then it'll heat up my cheese sandwich for me real nice.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember back in school we did the whole concave mirror to like make hot dogs. Yeah.
Yes. So what is causing that to excite the cheese particles in a way that they kind of get nice and melted?
Once the photons become coherent and start having interactions, that'll be energy. So yes, that'll cause a excess of energy within inside of the atomic structure of the cheese, and it'll just start heating up because it doesn't want that excess energy. That's what
Got a lot of cheese fans in chat. Tastes better when it's melted.
Look, I 100% understand. I am a big fan of all types of cheese.
We thought you were smart.
Yeah, if there are people out there that will put themselves through the worst types of experiences, being lactose intolerant or whatever, because cheese is that good. So, if you're somebody that doesn't like cheese, there might be something going on. I think a Mini Cooper just crashed through his house.
No, those are just the animals.
Yeah, there's just shenanigans. That's part of why I mute and stuff. Some of the noises that happen over here. We're past the peacock screaming season.
We're talking with Luke, who's got some interesting ideas. We're asking him questions about this idea that light puts out kind of a pressure thing, that the field around us contains the energy, the sun. What does the sun do in this model again?
It sends out pressure waves.
Okay.
Which causes a pressure gradient. That pressure gradient is actually what causes gravity as well.
What is a gradient? I know in graphic design it's like black on the top, white on the bottom, and then it goes gray in the middle.
Basically, yeah. So imagine the more layers you get on top of them, so like each other, the more dense the gradient will be at the bottom, obviously, because it has more layers of it on top. So it'll be basically more compressed.
Okay.
By gain coherence, you mean interacts with material.
Yes, so coherence can 100% cause different interactions with other materials. Coherence absolutely has to deal with the entire light spectrum as it is. Also, if you basically go into a state of decoherence as your coherence is lowering, you will enter basically what they've stated is like a quantum state. And I haven't mapped it out 100%, but if you either get too low in coherence or become incoherent, you might end up in a different realm altogether. Basically what they call the quantum realm, or it could be what they call the DMT realm. I haven't 100% mapped it out yet. Now that the actual scientific foundation of this theory is set up the way that it is, now I can start venturing out into other parts. So like, this wouldn't be a unifying field theory if I couldn't unify spirituality, if I couldn't unify health, if I couldn't unify different dimensions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like there's too many coincidences between spirituality aspects that line up with science, and I'm not going to be the one that ignores that.
So how does this work with consciousness?
Well, consciousness is almost, you could say, based off of coherence. It could be like parallel to each other. Um, I think consciousness might be outside of it though, because if we're talking about consciousness, like if you die, for example, and you turn into whatever your spiritual body looks like afterwards, however you believe in it, um, I still believe that you would have consciousness, but I think that your coherence would be different. So now that I'm able to go more into the spiritual side of things, I'm interested to see where it's going to lead to. Um, I think that there's obviously not a coincidence between what the quarter neons look like comparative to sacred geometry. So I'm kind of looking into that a little bit more now, but also not, you know, losing my head underneath the wave of spirituality.
So I'm thinking of photosynthesis. How does photosynthesis work in this model? What is giving growth to the plants? Why do the flowers bloom in this model?
So once the photons travel through what you could say is open space and they lower in coherence to start entering into the visible spectrum, um, at that point in time, it can just kind of reduce back to the classical sense. So every part of this theory can reduce either to quantum if you want it to. I wouldn't recommend it because their equations are like 3 miles long and mine are not. So hopefully I at least help them a little bit out with that. Um, Relativity, it's kind of up in the air whether you want to say it could reduce to that or not. I wouldn't recommend it because the interaction between how like gravity works and how like red shifting works is completely different. I mean, we're talking about more of an outward push than a inward pull. Um, but as far as anytime that coherence is in a stable state, um, it can reduce to classical sense and everything can work solely based off of our current understanding with the like standard models of photosynthesis, of biology, all of that stuff.
Fucking, oh my God. Rose is over here wanting to bring avocado into the cheese conversation. I do like guacamole. It is good, but
Yeah, that's part of the consciousness. I mean,
I don't know if it's like cheese is its own food group, Rose.
right, the caseins in the cheese, they've knocked me out unconscious. I have had just the most incredible dreams after a night of just eating, really good melted cheese.
Something about it being melted just is so special that you almost can't put into words what makes ooey gooey cheese in a cheese sandwich just different than a regular cheese sandwich. Although I'm fine with eating a cold cheese sandwich, perfectly happy. Something about the meltedness of it.
Yeah, I don't even care about like the actual like condition of the cheese, just that it's cheese. Like I'm down.
Cheese curds are
That's
great.
what I was saying. Avocados don't really go with cheese. I mean,
They do. How could you say that?
Avocados don't go with cheese, but
How
I
could
would
you
say
say
it's fair to say that cheese goes with avocados. You get what
you
I'm
eat
saying?
polenta, don't you, Rose?
I get what?
You eat polenta, don't you?
Polenta? No, I actually don't even know what that is, but I eat lots of avocados, and I do think an avocado and cheese sandwich with maybe some shredded lettuce is just perfect with a little bit of seasonings. I think those go together, but I'm weird. I'm willing to be the weird one and the wrong one in the equation.
So, in your model here, you were fairly mainstream. You think that in your model, there's space, which basically is a vacuum, or
No.
at least at the very least, a much lesser pressurized system than us. No. Go ahead and explain then.
So, in a typically non-excited state, the quaternions are in a negative polarity. So what we would understand as a vacuum is just a negative polarity, where most everything else is typically in a positive polarity unless there's some other interaction going on. But as the pressure waves basically move through space, they could induce a flip in polarity as they're moving. This could explain like plasma and all that stuff that we notice in space. But based off of my redshift models, I don't view them as being as far away or as large as what they currently understand them to be. So, like, for example, the actual size of the core of the sun, like what we see in Crow's hydrogen alpha 3 filter shots of it, the actual core itself is only about 500 miles wide, which makes it a dramatically less distance away. It very well could be that it's about 3,000 to 4,000 miles away. Because it's not if it is made up of element 144, it does not work off of nuclear. It's not a nuclear furnace. So when we're talking about actual heat interactions, it is completely different.
So it'll still warm up my skin. It'll still give me a tan,
still
and it'll
melt your
melt my
cheese.
cheese.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I got you. I got you.
That's important for me. Yeah.
I got you. All cheese interactions are still the same.
Right, because we were talking about how a microwave will just remove the nutrition. Overcooking food removes the nutrition. I just like to leave things out. I put them in a window, and then they just warm up with the sun, and they're good to go.
Yeah. So
That's prison style. Marcus is set.
So one interesting thing is with this theory, levitation is possible, right?
Quit looking at my garden. Move along.
Affleck.
Yeah. They're trying to eat our tomatoes.
Yeah, we have
They aren't. They're at the edge. They're trying to poke through. It's all the younger ducks.
Yeah, all the ducks are here tonight.
As long as they're in a row.
They were. It's not the norm around here. just when they're in mischief.
So let me see. I have a book on my shelf.
What, you have a book?
So I can sort of tell you how to levitate. I can tell you how to do it, but
yeah, I learned it from Chris Angel, the mind freak. He reveals the secret of levitation. You know, it's like the magician's code. I don't want to really reveal it, but
I thought it was lentils.
I'm not gonna lie. Like when it comes to him, like there is some stuff that he does that kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of an actual mind freak, I guess.
Right. I balance it out with a little bit of Dave Thomas, so a little bit of positivity here. He's the guy who had the radical idea that hamburgers should be in squares and not circles.
Dude,
I kind of have to agree. I you know what? Back in the day when Little Caesars was pizza, it was 2 square pizzas, and they were better than the round pizzas. I liked it.
Did you just say you liked Little Caesars?
Back in the day, now you know this is like 1987. What does gravity have to do with these? You know what? If you don't understand, then we can't make you understand.
So for instance, under this model, sound and light sort of work the same, but sound doesn't have as much an effect on the scalar field, right? But it does have an effect. So, for example,
sound and light are the same thing.
Correct. But light
They're
has
just
a
different
much
speeds.
Right, but light has a much stronger effect on the scalar field than sound does because we have a much higher and broader spectrum of sound. One of the things that I found the most interesting is actually when I was looking into sound, once we get up to hypersonic, so like not ultrasonic, but hypersonic sounds, they actually start experiencing particle wave duality themselves, which is really weird. That's kind of what made me feel even more validated whenever I wouldn't say I combined the two under this model. I would say I just kind of put them on the same spectrum. But the gradient that is pushing us down, right? This actually works off of certain frequencies depending on the materials themselves that they're actually pushing down on. So imagine if a wave is pushing down on an object. Standard acoustic theory states, well, you just have to push the object up with more force than it's being pushed down with, right? Well, what if you just send a deconstructive wave on the wave that is pushing it down? This is called a null, a harmonic null under my model. It just so happens that with the pyramids in Egypt, right? So if the air blows into the king's chamber, it actually sets off a certain frequency. It's around like 400 something hertz. I don't remember exactly what it is. But when you have a frequency like that that starts resonating off of the quartz foundation, every single block of the pyramid becomes about 25 kilograms. If you look at the earlier accounts of whenever people still could climb on top of the pyramids before they, outlawed it and all that, which is understandable to a certain extent. Like I get it, it's historical. You don't want, kids dropping sticky lollipops and shit on them. So I get it. There are many, many, many accounts of people basically talking about like they felt weightless up there.
So that's why you see Chris Angel doing the thing in Vegas where he's like, oh, he's floating above the pyramid.
It
That's
could
all
be.
lit up.
It could be. I don't know exactly how they do it. For all I know is they could be using a form of electrostatic levitation, which is a thing.
Zach Zambala does that at Flattoberfest every year.
The electrostatic.
Does a demonstration with that.
Very,
I can't hear it. I fuck it up for him, but
it's very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Actually, the layer where is currently understood that like the ISS and a majority of the satellites that we have, that's what I actually predict that is where an electrostatic layer will be. And then there's also documents showing that the government has entertained electrostatic levitation equipment or technologies.
I'm pretty sure it's just lentils.
I could believe it.
The gut health, the gut biome, the stuff that's happening with the food that you eat, affecting the consciousness. You were mentioning the music, the sound and light, and I was thinking of like electronic dance music show where they have, light shows combined with subwoofers, so you're feeling the bass and the lights are hitting you, the sound is hitting you, and then you're just like, whoa, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it could have negative or positive effects. So when we're talking about higher frequencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of works in opposite. So higher frequencies affect smaller things, lower frequencies affect bigger things. So if you're at a concert where there is actually really high frequencies going on, you are probably having some kind of internal reactions to it, and it's probably not always going to be the best. We're talking about like there, for the most part, isn't any difference between you doing that and you opening your microwave while it's on.
Right. So I'm thinking in terms of I don't know if this is the official term, the brown note. You hear the note, and you drop your pants, and it's all gone, and it's very
Yeah, that
very
could be.
embarrassing.
That could definitely be a real thing. I mean, that
That's a
was one of
physical
my.
effect people have from
Yeah,
listening to certain music, some tones and things.
yeah, or a couple cigarettes and then coffee.
Hmm. Sure, that'll do it.
Yeah,
And then also like
a lot of
so-called
cheese the night
acoustic
before.
weapons. Yep, yep. Is
Oh
there
yeah, acoustic weapons. Yeah, they could definitely work the same way. Same thing as the direct energy weapons.
mhm.
Um, I mean, realistically, there's not going to be that much of a difference in uh, effect when we're talking about acoustic weapons versus direct energy weapons.
Yeah,
Um,
I said brown note. Greg Dubs is asking if it's the shit your pants frequency. That's kind of what we're talking about at this point in the conversation.
yeah, it's probably going to be low, but not like super low. Um, I would say probably around like I would say probably around 800 hertz, maybe a little bit, maybe actually, yeah, it could be lower than that. Could definitely be lower than that. Could be around 400 hertz.
Is that why they call it Taco Bell?
Yeah, somebody find what
Well done, sir. Well done.
somebody find what frequency that bell emits so we can get a definitive answer on this.
It's the diarrhea frequency.
Yeah, they talk about as above, so below. How about as going in, as coming out?
Yeah. When I was young, they still had they called them Cholitos.
Yes.
They quit making those. They looked exactly the same on the way out as they did on the way in.
I could believe it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no food there.
Sure. There are pleasure frequencies. I think it's a saxophone.
Yeah, there are definitely a ton of frequencies that will do multiple different things. So, like, for example, the Rife machines that are out, I fully endorse those. There's the amount of things that they can do for you, treatment wise, is well beyond.
I believe Rose has one that Matt Rife, supposedly Royal Rife's nephew, gave her.
Yep, I got it, and it didn't help me, unfortunately, but maybe I didn't use it enough or the right way or pick the right frequency for what my problem is.
Yes, so you're basically every part of your body works off of a different frequency. So, another thing is if there can be interference. So I would probably do it in an area that doesn't have a lot of electromagnetic interference or even sound interference.
Okay, that's good advice because I genuinely, I mean, I'm surrounded by electronics constantly between Jason's musical instruments and me being a computer addict. I probably
Her house sounds like a beehive.
What'd you say, Ben?
I said her house sounds like a beehive.
Yeah, like for someone like Ben, it was noticeable and he could feel it.
I live off grid, so my house does not sound like that. And their house is like holy shit.
And I tried to put flowers in your room and everything to like make it.
Oh, it was super nice. You have a super nice home. It was super nice, and it's just I have so little electronic stuff going on in my house, and half the day it's not on at all. And then the difference, especially at night, like at night, I can hear every tiny little sound at my house. I hear the trees shifting, all of that, and then the difference between that and it's not just your house. All city houses sound kind of buzzy to me.
Do you remember the petunias? I grew the petunias from seed, and then I cut them before you arrived, and I put them in the room. And I don't know if you remember this, but they were purple. Okay, so purple, months and months of purple, and then after you and Christy left, one of the flowers grew pink.
Huh.
Yeah. It was crazy, man. I was really sad when the winter came and it died.
Have you ever looked into orgonite?
The little things that people make that are kind of a knockoff of Wilhelm Reich's orgone energy accumulator.
Yeah, if you have the real one, not like the knockoff one, they very much work.
Yeah, I always presumed. I always wanted to build a orgone accumulator.
Yeah.
I've put quite a bit of thought into that. The ones that are basically a knockoff of the idea, they don't really put any thought into it at all. Where when you look at the actual orgone accumulator, there was layers of organic and inorganic material that was differing, creating this effect. I think it was very similar probably to like if anybody's ever watched Cammy and Odell, where if you take a polarized sheet and you put it up, it blocks off certain waves of light. You take a second one and you turn it 180, it'll block out the other waves of light. But then if you put a third one up to match the first one, it will let light through again, which makes zero fucking sense because that should have all been blocked by that second sheet. Why would it start coming through now again by adding another blocker? That doesn't even make sense. And I think it's similar to that type of thing is the way that's working. Well, what these guys are doing is just taking crystal chunks, which I can appreciate. They're getting use out of basically trash because like all them little chunks like that are just like for people like me that make kashabins and jewelry and whatnot. It's just the excess shit that we cut off with our saws and grinders and whatnot, and throw it in there with some metal shavings and then some epoxy, which the epoxy would basically be an insulator. So I don't even understand that, why they use that. But there isn't really a lot of thought. And I understand that they're putting different materials in there, but other than that, it's not anything even remotely close to what the orgone accumulator.
Well, the scattered metal flakes actually can help a lot because you're essentially deflecting, refracting, and scattering organized waveforms. So now they're not organized anymore. They're not really anything anymore. So that's basically the same way that like the coating that is on like fighter jets, stuff like that, to help avoid like locking on and radar and all that stuff. It's the same thing. It just scatters it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I always thought about painting my car in that, but
Does that benefit the person?
for legal reasons, I never did.
Got to keep it street legal.
Define street legal.
Not attracting attention from officers of the law who want to pull you over.
They'll never know until I
Okay.
guess they hit me with radar, and then they're like, "Why is this acting like the way it is?"
Okay. We had some
Hey.
questions about the DMT realm. So the idea that using a combination of light and maybe binaural beats or of some kind can induce a state of consciousness where a person might feel like they're out of body.
Yes, absolutely. So imagine your coherence and consciousness is being modulated to where your brain waves are acting differently. So now your perception of this world is going to be different. Now, we can get in the weeds of whether that is a perception of a different realm or whether it is just a hallucination. I don't necessarily believe it's a hallucination because there's too much consistency throughout individual people to say that it is just a hallucination. I will tell anybody I have not mapped out how all of that works. So I would recommend not to do it. So that way you don't get locked there, basically. Depending on how much of a psychonaut individuals are, I mean, you might already be halfway in this world and halfway out. But I have yet to map out exactly where the lines are. I mean, for all I know, like, if we look at biblical wise, we look at disembodied spirits, right? What the Nephilim turned into. They are on this plane, but not necessarily in this realm, right? I do not know how many layers there are between where we are and where they are. So, venture at your own risk.
That's those are wise words, certainly.
DMT doesn't bother me, but that iboga is a little scary for me. That one you're gone for way too fucking long.
I was not affected by DMT. Nothing happened to me. I was not affected by LSD. Nothing happened to me. I was not affected by iboga. Nothing happened to me. But one time, and after a whole bunch of times of mushrooms not working, I think it was Ben that said, just getting it stuck in your teeth, just make sure you nibble it with your front teeth. And I did that with some like leftover stuff that someone left in my house. And like for 2 seconds, I thought I felt something. So if I ever get a hold of that same drug, I'll just remember what Ben told me, which is to chew it with my 2 front teeth only and then make sure I swallow it. But why wouldn't I be affected by psychedelics like LSD or DMT and iboga, Luke? Do you think I could? I'm just so mentally strong that I block it out from doing what it's supposed to do.
Could be your metabolism.
An absorption issue.
Yeah, it could be either you don't absorb it properly, or maybe your body processes it too quickly. Like for me,
It wasn't you. It was in the chat. It says you should try PCP, and that made me laugh. I'm sorry. That made me fucking laugh.
PCP, yeah, you know me.
Oh no, that's hilarious. So
the metabolism thing certainly factors into it. That's why I jokingly talk about cheese all the time and saying, I've had religious experiences on some really good cheese. I've also been offered other things, and I've just had the most interesting experiences. And then people look at me to think I'm joking around and I'm just playing and pranking and pulling a leg. But no, I mean, I've been to other worlds that have been parallel to this one and just weird imaginative things, and I've had a lot of fun with it. So I haven't had any like fearful, demonic thing. It's all been like weird, dark, right, but it hasn't been evil.
Right.
What about the timid grappler?
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute.
Right. So you may not have crossed that threshold. And I mean, this could be like a individual case by case basis of like how much you take compared to what it actually does to your individual brain, and how your brain like changes its own, waveforms in order to interpret what's going on, to see what's going on. So like if you gave the same dose to 2 different people, one of them may go all the way down to fucking floor level while the other one is, still at level 1. But yeah, I have the similar like metabolism for specifically Novocaine. Like I had to get stitches in my forehead one time, and by stitch 2, she was already like halfway through the vial, and I was like, just do the rest. The needle from you giving me the Novocaine hurts worse than the stitches that you do. So just do the stitches. Because honestly, I think she kept doing it in the same spot. So. But yeah, your individual metabolism has 100% to deal with it. That's like I know a lot of people that kind of like hit that max, and instead of them going further, they'll do like the deprivation tanks and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend doing that because my mind goes all over the place to begin with. But there are many different ways to do many different things.
Right.
And I mean, when we're talking about an individual level, there's a lot of varying factors. But like I said, I haven't started mapping out exactly how many layers there possibly could be. And that's one thing that gets me about like modern science is they don't want to entertain something like that because they wanted to get away from philosophical ideas, but yet currently we're using quantum foam and virtual particles. That sounds like we just did a full circle back to philosophy, and we're just using different words.
It is getting a little philosophical. How do you say that? Philosophical.
Philosophizing.
Philosophical.
Philosophical.
Yeah.
Philosophizing.
It's a tomato argument.
Right.
Is it a fruit or is it a vegetable? Is it a wave? Is it a particle?
It's a fruit.
Right, and that's one thing that gets me the most is like, so imagine you have a particle of energy, right, that has no interactions around it. Energy, pretty much for the most part, always wants to expand, right? So if it has no interactions around it, what is it going to look like when it hits a target?
I shop at Walmart, so I don't know.
It's going to look spread out. It's going to look like it's in waveform. It's not actually a waveform. It's not a different form. It's just a expansion of the energy. But
I still have a problem with what's choosing the directionality.
What do you mean?
What is choosing the directionality of this energy?
Just wherever it's emitted. I mean, there is.
Why is it emitting? Why is it emitting?
Because that pressure builds up, so it has to release that buildup. It's kind of the same as the electron excitation. So once it returns to the normal state, it releases that energy. Energy naturally pulses. That's what creates this pressure wave.
You're using the word pulse. I've heard heartbeat, this type of thing.
It would be similar, same thing. A heartbeat, a pulse, just measured as a frequency, really.
Okay, so your heart is open now. What is your favorite Christian band?
Nickelback.
Good answer.
Did he just fucking whip out an answer like nothing?
I didn't even know they were Christian.
He has an answer for everything.
I don't know if they are. Just when in doubt, Nickelback.
So you understand how do you understand how a galvanic cell battery works?
Not off top.
So you've got a cathode, which is a positive, and an anode, which is a negative. And then really inside there's a bunch of plates, and the plates go cathode to anode, cathode to anode. So by the end of it, you've got the least stable galvanically going all the way up to the most stable galvanically. And these plates and then the anode are all just borrowing to the next guy until it feeds into the cathode. But in order for that to happen, for any energy exchanges to happen, and what creates the conditions is the anode being less stable than the cathode, it starts breaking down. And when it breaks down, the molecule splits apart, and the negative will jump over to the cathode, the negative side of that element, and the positive side will get oxygenated. So the oxygen will grab onto that positive side and cart it off.
Okay.
Now, when that happens, because the negative side has jumped over to the cathode, it's now given a negative charge to the cathode, where before it was fairly balanced. Now it's at a negative, so it's going to draw a positive. So this positive part of the particle that's floating around is going to now get sucked over to that negative part of the particle. And so then when those two come back together is where you're going to get this surplus of energy. And also, this is how you're picking your directionality. This over here typically has a negative charge. This over here typically has a positive charge. That energy won't flow or release at all unless both those things exist. Unless you've got a positive part and a negative part has to be over here, and in between is what we would typically call the field. And I don't understand why in particle physics they don't have a recognition of that. There's still got to be a negative there's got to be something choosing the directionality, because if there wasn't something putting a negative pull, then no matter how much energy you had in a hot spot, it's going to sit right fucking there. It's not going to go nowhere.
Yeah, so now that you laid it out like that, so remember the variable I have called coherence?
Yeah.
So decoherence is basically coherence in a decay. So as you were talking about it decaying, right? So this is actually very similar to copper. Have you ever looked at the atomic structure of copper? So they do not currently have a reason, whether we're talking about classical or whether we are talking about quantum, as to why its outer electron will drop into a inner orbit, right? I do. It is because that outer shell has lost coherence so much that the inner shell actually pulls that electron in. So it loses an electron wall.
So you're
This is
saying that
essentially-
the second inner shell becomes a valence shell?
Yes. So it's a similar process to what you're talking about. So as that decoheres, it loses its ability to maintain the structure of the charge or particles within inside of it. These particles now venture out and just go with the flow to the negative side.
So then with that said, would there be something on, because I'm from what I'm gathering, although you swing both ways, little joke, that you're leaning more toward the flat model. Would then there be a negative source, a negative hotspot that matches what the sun would be, and that's what's creating the flow between?
Well, when we're talking about two quarter neons, whether one of them is a like a one plane object, so like the horizontal part, the best way to describe, I should have said this from the very get-go, the best way to actually describe the way a quarter neon works is to imagine a gyroscope. So you have three rotational aspects. These three rotational aspects end up causing a polarity. They have a positive and a negative polarity. So there will always be a negative return for whatever energy, and then it just continues to go. This is what the toroidal shape that a lot of people talk about is. It is an expression of the scalar gyroscope being shown as a magnetic field. This is something that quarter neons, the scalar gyroscopes, naturally do if they have a rotation for it. So for example, helium and hydrogen do not have a rotational aspect to them. They do not have a torsional aspect to them. We only get that once lithium comes in and it gets the extra proton and electron. This actually causes an imbalance, forcing the particle to spin because of the extra torsional aspect it now has.
Oh yeah, you were impressed by that?
Yeah, I like the three-dimensional aspect of this. Did you ever use a joystick and play a game where you're flying around in three-dimensional space?
Yes.
Okay, and then they have like the gimbal and you're trying to find a balance, but really it's, you could flip yourself over, up could be down and down could be up, but to you it's like you're just
See,
flying.
that's one thing that's interesting is that when we're talking about Euler integers, we never have a gimbal lock under a quarter neon.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about the gimbal lock and like dividing by 0.
Yeah, it never happens in a quarter neon.
Okay.
What the hell? I did not put a comment in chat.
There's actually memes about it too. If you look up Euler integers and quarter neon gyroscopes, there's literal scientific memes about it.
Yeah. My mind's going like all the different directions at once, and I'm trying to cohere my thoughts into a linear fashion. I was going to bring up like Terrence Howard. Remember that guy? He had said some weird things a couple of times, like he was born and knew math in the womb and this sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Well, what he was showing, I don't know what he was saying. It was kind of a funny theatrical thing. I don't know what that was about. The product he was showing was like a three-dimensional thing, and it was trying to find its balance. It was basically like a drone that could turn on 3 different axes.
Okay.
And then he had this little physical object toy that he was kind of playing with. And then we kind
Well,
of...
he was saying that toy was supposed to be basically the void spaces on the in the flower of life.
Something to that effect. So
Right,
he'd
so-
gone and done a bunch of podcasts for a while, and people talked about him, laughed at him, and then completely didn't consider the theories and the math and the stuff he was talking about, which wasn't his own. He was working with other people. He was trying to push a product to market.
Right.
And
one thing that's interesting is like when we're talking about like vacuum geometry or really just any kind of geometric aspect in general, it's interesting how it is already implemented within inside of the quaternion. So for example, let's see if I can find it here. So inside of the quaternion to begin with, you already have a tetrahedron. You have a icosahedron, whatever that word is, a cube, the octahedron, the dodecahedron. There's multiple shapes already inside of this quaternion. All of the vacuum geometry that they've been searching for forever is already within inside of the quaternion. They've all been... It's quite interesting to see how it's slowly come like full circle back to quaternions without them acknowledging quaternions. So for example, when we're talking about virtual particles and how they are described, how they look, all of that, it is literally just a quaternion. It is the scalar aspect of the quaternion. When we're talking about quantum foam, it just goes back to Maxwell's sea of tiny vortices, which is just a sea of quaternions. We're basically going full circle, and everybody is dancing around the same terminology without going back to the original name of it.
do you have an answer for why that might be?
Yes. So Newton's laws transcend actual physical ideas. When I say that, so for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? When Maxwell's equations were separated, or his equation was separated, when quantum took the energy aspect of it, right? They had no structure anymore. They only had energy. Well, in order to try to understand and explain energy without structure, you have to rely on probability. If you insert probability, that means that you have to take something out. That something that was taken out is called determinism, meaning that there is a actual purpose, there is an actual function, there is an actual expected outcome for what is going to happen. So, because they didn't have the structure, determinism was taken out, and the only thing that they could rely on was probability. So, they're still looking at it from a probability aspect. They can't look at it as a deterministic structure like Maxwell did. And what's interesting is like, so have y'all heard of modified Newtonian? I think it's modified Newtonian dynamics and then modified relativity. both of these are essentially stating that there are field interaction. One thing that I absolutely love about Einstein is just his absolute refusal to accept the probability aspect of quantum. Because you have to remember, he still had the structure. So, of course, he's not going to want to look at quantum as a probability thing. They had no choice, but he wasn't going to look at it that way. So, that's one of the main reasons why he went back, because he knew that there was a deeper field. There was a deeper field interactions going on that neither one of them was seeing. There's even a possibility. One of his quotes can loosely be stated as him admitting we need to go back to Maxwell's equation. I lost where I was going now.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit lost here too. I go back to maybe determinism, probability. I would ask you maybe about synchronicity and how that kind of ties into this with consciousness.
You could, it depends on how you view it. So, like, I would say that synchronicity probably wouldn't actually arise within a probability world, like a probabilistic state. If we have determinism, then I would say that synchronicity definitely like exists within that world.
Just let it sink in a little bit. This is a heavy topic, or maybe it's a light topic. I don't know.
Ha!
That's one of the
Well played.
actually what Ben was talking about before. That is one of the, well, pretty much the only way that I met conservation of energy. Is that anything that is lost is returned to the field. But if it retains structure, if it has a high coherence, then it will actually pull back from the field.
I just had a flash of David Icke wearing a teal jumpsuit, like his tracksuit, and having his experiences. Do you get into any of David Icke's material?
No, I have not looked into a lot of his stuff. I know the name.
Okay.
I vaguely know, like, actually, I might not even know like any of the interactions that he had.
Okay.
He's most well known for being the reptilian guy.
Right. That's why I remembered it. I remembered it was some kind of extraterrestrial type experience or interdimensional type experience, something like that.
He's explored a lot of different ideas, and people get hung up on one of his more interesting ideas. More recently, he was kind of putting together this idea of the waves and the functions and how we have a consensus reality and this type of thing. So in that research, I think he's approaching a little bit about what we're talking about here, trying to get to this idea of how we experience our consensus reality, and maybe tying that into questions and concepts of what people are saying is like a simulation theory.
So, have you ever heard about the Copenhagen interpretation? So within that, there was basically it kind of set out rules that you had to follow if you wanted to basically make any kind of additions, any kind of new theories, or anything like that. There is so every part of here, we'll just go over the whole theory real quick. There is essentially every single field of science is unified inside of this theory, whether we're talking about liquid theory, whether we're talking about atmospheric, whether we're talking about which, I mean, those two are kind of the same anyway, but a little bit different. Whether we're talking about atomic structures, whether we're talking about electricity, whether we're talking about just any part of classical physics. Relativity is in there as well. Quantum field theory, quantum mechanics, quantum electrodynamics, all of that is in there as well. I was able to derive every single law and constant within science based off of first principle values. I was able to derive the entire periodic table plus the extra that I got as well from first principle values. I was able to um, predict all particle masses that are currently in the particle zoo. Not only that, but also identify which ones were probably misidentified. So, for example, when we're talking about there is a mass for a photon in motion, and there is a mass for a photon at rest. When a photon is in motion, it creates pressure waves, which the regular photon at rest does as well. The issue is that obviously, because the photon that is traveling, these waves are going to act different. The waves that are being put off are what we currently understand as gravitons, which is quantum's attempt at unifying gravity, and it is also the Higgs boson, right? So these ripples going through is what helps matter accumulate. It's what basically continues everything in motion. Um, Dark matter, dark energy, they're misidentified as well. One thing that's interesting is that
Under the typical model currently, wouldn't the Higgs boson be what's causing coherence?
it is essentially the God particle, the particle that I don't know if they say it creates matter.
It's what gives weight to matter.
Right, and it gets its matter from the Higgs field itself.
Because this is under the same idea that your electron and your neutron don't have any matter to them, so we can't see them or really do anything with, or really weigh and measure them in a conventional sense.
I say that we can. So I did. There is a relationship. There is a weight relationship between protons and electrons that has been like it's one of the constants. So I think it's a relationship of 1820 or something like that. It's a 1820, whatever the unit is that they actually use for it. That stays consistent throughout.
I don't disagree with this. I talk about this actually, that electricity has weight. People just don't realize it. Like a dead battery in a full battery, like a C battery. If you take a dead one and you drop it flat on the floor, that fucking thing will bounce up 6 inches. Doink. If you take a full one and do it, that thing drops deader than shit. Just doop.
Well, yes. So if we look at Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared, there's a direct relationship, obviously, between energy and matter. Matter is just a condensed form of energy. Energy does have weight to it. So if you do have a battery that is charged compared to one that is not, yes, you will have an increased weight in the charged battery.
I'd like to take it back to nickel real quick. Nickel back to nickel cadmium batteries. Nickel being the fifth most frequently seen element on Earth, I think. Fifth most common element on Earth. And getting back to battery talk and the weight of the batteries and weight of electricity. You were saying how your model ties into the elements, the table of the elements. Could you speak more on that?
Yeah, let me go to that part in the paper.
So what are the most frequent occurrences of these elements? And do you have explanations why nickel is so common?
It depends on what is basically friendly and the most stable in order to basically keep combining into other elements. What's the most accepted to protons or electrons, depending on if we're talking about ions or not. As to why nickel is the most plentiful, I don't actually have an answer. It could be just because maybe it's very easy for other things to combine into it. Maybe there are other interactions that cause it to be easier to be made.
Yeah, I don't have an answer either. I'm just kind of asking myself some questions. I have some facts here, doing some internet searches to figure out what I can find, and some trivia for you. It says the element of nickel was first isolated and classified as an element in 1751 by a Swedish chemist, and Axel Fredrik Konsted. I'm a Minnesotan. I don't know if I speak Swedish very well. So he extracted it from an
There's
ore.
sister cities all over the place. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm just a little bit ashamed right now. I'm trying to figure out how they mistook it for copper, so they were confused with this element of nickel. They thought it was copper, so then the German word Kupfernickel, meaning devil's copper, was used. So to get the word nickel from a German word Kupfernickel, meaning devil's copper, because copper is not nickel, but they resemble each other.
Yeah, I could kind of see that.
And then the copper top ding, the batteries commercials. I have the sound memory of the commercial being some certain tones, and it associates it with copper and the copper top batteries, and the Energizer Bunny comes along. What brand of batteries do you recommend?
There could be a very good possibility in the future that batteries are obsolete.
Why would they be obsolete?
Because I have
Everything has a
not.
battery, and we recharge them. I
Because
sometimes buy Rayovacs. Is that okay?
Yeah. So far, I have not found a single part where Tesla was wrong. I think that's the safest way I can say that.
I'm picking up what you're putting down through the ether here.
Through the scalar field.
Scalar field.
Through the Maxwell field, because I
Sure.
named it the Maxwell field because of him being the one to implement the idea of it, or to first introduce the idea of it. So, like, for example, in the experiment done by Golden Gate University, inside of that Faraday cage that was inside of the vacuum chamber, they detected movement and current.
What tools are they using to detect this?
I don't know what kind of very, very sensitive voltmeter that they were using for the piezo, and I assume just a very, very sensitive motion detector for the ferrofluid.
For anybody that doesn't know, ferrofluid just has little iron particles in it. It reacts to magnet and reacts to fields.
It's a very cool looking fluid.
Yeah, ferro's iron.
Sounds like an Egyptian pharaoh, but it's spelled differently.
Yes, spelled the American way. Yeah.
We got a little bit into talking about trees, structures, branching, this type of thing. Have you seen Ben's model here, Balderson's model of the tree of life that he's put together? The structure.
I watched a video that he had posted on YouTube a while back, earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna look over it a couple more times, because I think Yggdrasil is one of the sacred geometries, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, that is going to be part of what I'm going to be looking into.
Yeah, in my opinion, the Yggdrasil is the masculine side, and then what people recognize is the flower of life, the circles. That's the feminine side. So if you take, each center of each one of them circles has a dot, and all them dots connect together. That's basically the tree of life right there. You can lay the feminine side and just lay it directly over top of it.
So oddly enough, there's probably a atomic number, or basically an atom, that actually corresponds with the flower of life and with Idrisil. So that is actually something that I want to look into. For example, like we talked about before, Metatron's cube looks to be a 1-to-1 to element 144. Vesca Pisces looks like it might be relatively close to element 138. Now, when we're talking about these elements
These,
that
anybody that's wondering, are theoretical elements. They aren't something that has ever been seen or produced at this point.
they might have been seen, but they haven't been notated down.
Well, yeah, that's one of the problems with some of these elements is they only exist for a fraction of a second. Just like you
Well, when they're made inside of an electromagnetic furnace, it is only natural for them to only exist for a couple seconds.
But a lot of these elements, they change and degrade so damn quickly you don't even ever have time. It's at that elemental structure, because people don't understand also that, like, most people have never looked at decay chains and realize that a lot of these elements are the same fucking thing, and
right, they're all just essentially energy in different stacks in different forms. That's all it is. It's just different accumulations of energy. But we
like you look at uranium. Uranium's the top end of that decay chain. Lead's the bottom end. This one's negative. This one's positive. This sucks in energy. This is chucking excess energy. They're actually the exact same thing. Uranium would eventually decay down into lead, and even bismuth, which most people know what it is and have it at their house. That's the pretty much stable part of that chain. That's about as stable as it gets, is bismuth. But that's all of the exact same thing.
If I remember correctly, so I did do a little bit of looking into with the sacred geometry and the elements. If I remember right, I think Idrisil was related to bismuth.
Makes sense, because that's where that particular chain reaches stability, at least as much stability as it's going to have.
Right. So what you're seeing as the straight lines, I actually attribute to torsional values. What you would typically see as a circle, I would view as electron shells.
I understand what you're saying.
There's definitely Metatron's cube was a literal almost 100% 1-to-1. Some of the other ones, there may be a little bit of interpretation into it, but it's really not that much. It's just as long as you're understanding that straight lines represent torsional values and curved lines or circles represent electron shells. But yeah, no, I 100% with like decay times and all that. So for example, when we're talking about lithium ion, when it gains that extra electron, my decay timing that I have set for that or calculated for that is 68 seconds. The empirical data on it is around, I think it's 65 to 70 seconds. So yeah, so everything.
Which anything for anybody that doesn't know, and I've actually have a series with Emily Moyer. If you guys want to go check that out, where we're going through the different elements, anything out of that first row of elements, that shit is unstable as fuck? This is part of why, like, you can't even put lithium fires out with water because the lithium will rip the oxygen right out of the water and break the molecule apart and take the oxygen right out of it and just keep on going, baby. Like, that lithium's beast.
Yeah, because it started out as a unstable structure. That's whenever we first get the torsional aspect within the elements. Like it literally, the torsional value that I have set for it is basically 0.01. We don't actually get up to, so for example, hydrogen and helium have 0 torsional aspects to them. Once we get up to element 6, you start getting 0.02. Then when we get to, for example, I can't remember off the top of my head, what's the atomic number for uranium?
That's 238. Is that the normal one?
That is the
92.
Yeah, there we go. I was about to say I think it's 90 something. So for that we have a
uranium.
Yeah.
You're talking enriched. That's what that.
Yeah, I was talking enriched uranium. That's what I was spitting off right away, I guess.
So,
238 is the most common isotope of uranium. 93% of natural uranium is 238. Yeah.
So as far as like emission pressure, what I was talking about with the Teslian waves, coherence, the emission pressure, the scalar potential, the torsional value, they're all varying and they kind of all depend on each other. I mean, we're talking about a very dynamic system. This is basically why like older theories, for example, Newtonian gravity, it works in very special scenarios, but he never accounted for going on top of a mountain. He never accounted for going under the ocean, stuff like that. Gravity changes when you change your position, but for where he was for the most part correct. But when we're talking about element 92, so it has a coherence factor of 0.52. This is about the middle because coherence only goes from 0 to 1 for right now. When we're talking about
this is why they enrich it to use it. They get the enriched uranium, the 238, because it's not that's much more unstable.
Correct. So its original coherence is still going to be the same, but as it gets further enriched, its torsional values are going to increase. So its emission pressure is going to be, or the Tesla pressure it's going to be, is 3.30 times 10 to the negative 5. Then the radial dispersion, which is essentially how far out this emission pressure goes before it completely dissipates. This is going to be 0.25, which is a kind of medium base for the torsional value. Then when we go to the scalar potential, it is going to be 6.34 to 10 or times 10 to the negative 5, but then the torsional value itself is going to be 1.69. So realistically speaking, uranium itself is kind of a stable-ish element, but as you enrich it, right, you are going to extremely raise that torsional value. If its coherence cannot overcome that torsional value, you are going to have energy being spread out. Now, if you have energy being spread out, what does that look like? Radiation. And there are definitely some elements that emission pressure and their coherence cannot keep up with their torsional values. Their torsional values are way too high. So, for example, when we talk about the very last element as of right now, which is 118, so it has a coherence of 0.45. I hate saying the name of it, so I'm just going to say element 118. So 0.45 is a relatively medium coherence again, but the radial dispersion is much higher. It is at 0.3. The torsional value of it is almost, I think it's actually over twice the amount of uranium. So we're talking about a lower coherence, a higher radial dispersion, and a higher torsional value. So as soon as this element exists, it is already starting to tear itself apart.
Yeah, that was my thought on it right away, because it's going to burn right through itself. That's going to be the bigger problem right there, is why it makes it unusable. Because just like with a light bulb, where you pump inert gas in there to keep it from oxidizing, so that way it'll maintain coherence. It's the same thing for any energy source. You don't want it to burn itself up in 2 seconds.
But
Like that.
you
That's not going to
can,
help that much.
you can
And it's going to produce a
maintain
shit
it.
ton of heat.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
because it's right, because thermal radiation, thermal heat is just entropy. It is the energy becoming disorganized. It is decoherence. Entropy and decoherence are essentially the same thing, except it is a matter of whether the object is able to maintain its structure after this happens. If it's able to bounce back based off of the memory of its structure. So
Well, I understand spirit of the age. So this is just something people don't really understand. The periodic table of elements is the atomic table of elements, and the only thing that is really measured on that is how many protons are in a molecule. So just understand that when they say 118, that means there's 118 protons. If it's a stable element, unlike where you're talking about uranium-238, the uranium-92, that's going to have approximately the same number of electrons as it does protons, which is where you're talking about stability. And it's not going to go bleeding in one side off really badly. So the radioactive ones, they just have the more protons, but a lot of times they're more unstable, so they're more quickly going to chuck off that positive end. Like when I was talking about the decay chain, it's going to try and get down to where it reaches a stable element where it's able to hold its structure and not want to throw or gain anything, which in the uranium decay chain, it's bismuth is what we were talking about. That's a fairly stable structure, and it won't really want to do either grab or dump. In more layman's terms, I understand everything Luke's saying. That's just not how I talk, because I learned a long time ago that people get real irritated. Which isn't me talking to you at all, Luke.
No, you're good.
Yeah, when I was younger and I would talk like that, people get real pissed off at me, and they think you're just trying to talk above their heads and being dickheads. Obviously, we invited him for this conversation, so he should be talking like this, but I still learned to speak like I'm a damn.
So the best way that I can explain the periodic table is take a Lego, right? A Lego is a proton, a Lego is a neutron. Add more Legos to it. Continue adding more Legos, and you go up the periodic table. But understand that at a certain point, you start getting a spin. Now, objects that are smaller can spin faster and still be stable. Objects that are larger cannot spin as fast because they start ripping themselves apart. This is the same thing. So you add more Legos onto it, but you're turning it faster. So now Legos start flying off of it. These Legos that are flying off of it is radiation.
Like a sumo wrestler and a hula hoop?
Yeah, but I guess the radiation would be sweat beads.
Shaking those hips. Everything's going out. So I got a question here. We'll clarify. Spirit of the Age made a statement saying all radioactive compounds do not belong on the periodic table. They're clearly compounds, and the periodic table is for elements. Now we can maybe stop for a moment and discuss compounds. My theory of compound is that a compound is where a man takes his wife to create a nuclear family.
Ha!
All right. Understand that realistically speaking, hydrogen is a compound. It is a combination of protons and neutrons. Helium is a compound. You can actually look at the entire periodic table as just compounds. There is no actual pure element. If we talk about pure elements, we're just talking about protons, neutrons, and electrons. We're just talking about energy itself.
This is why there's an entire group. They call it the cult of hydrogen, which says everything starts with hydrogen. It's one proton, one electron, actually no neutron, and then it starts building up from there. And everything is just adding on another one, adding on another one.
It's
Yeah,
just
I'm not expecting pure elements when we're going to Pound Town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, things get weird with the neutrons because then that's where you get your allotropes, because then you get like deuterium is just adding a neutron to hydrogen.
Yes.
And that's not on the periodic table of elements because it's still only got one proton. So it's still the same thing as hydrogen. That's why it's an allotrope of hydrogen. It's not really. And then that whole thing doesn't really work the way a person thinks it would, because like some of the things that degrade, like deuterium will degrade. Is it deuterium degrades down into hydrogen? Or I mean into helium, so it actually jumps up.
So,
yeah, it degrades into helium, which that's just wild. Why did it gain a proton by dumping a neutron?
It like takes a diagonal step, and then once it loses it, it just steps sideways to where it just becomes helium.
Yeah, and so instead of just becoming hydrogen with no neutron, now it's fucking helium. Right?
And that is because it gains a torsion because of that. It's off balance. So in order to fix that balance, it has to start turning. It returns to basically a neutral state once it loses it, because helium has no torsion to it. One thing that's interesting, if you want to say a pure element, then so I saw somebody in the comment talking about ether. If anybody remembers, in the original Mendeleev periodic table, ether was the first element. A lot of people understood that as light. I actually agree with Mendeleev, but I would not say it is light. I would say it is energy.
I disagree with both, and I think it's fluid.
So when we're talking about the scalar field, you could represent it as fluid-like, yes.
Yeah, it is the field.
Right.
Like there's again, just like with a battery, to me, everything is a battery, including you and me.
Right.
We're just biochemical batteries, and everything's an anode and a cathode. So it's a 3-part system: positive, negative, and then the field, which is the fluid in between that's allowing the transition of power to happen.
Right, and energy flows.
Yeah.
So yes, you are right, but it is also that the first element is just energy in general, and that liquid, what you would say, is just pressurized more and more and more to where it becomes other particles, becomes other elements. So you could easily say that yes, it is fluid-like, yes.
Yeah, fluid's the only thing that allows that transition to happen.
Yeah, it is definitely fluid.
Even when you're people don't realize it, but even when you're talking about normal electricity, the reason that we use metals is because they turn into fluid. That's just
Right,
a
it is a
fluid that's at the
flow.
temperature is solid.
Right, that's why we say a flow of current, a flow
Yes.
of electricity. Yes, it is
Yeah.
fluid-like.
Well, it's the transition piece is fluid. What's making the field? What's the field? Because when you're looking at it, you've got the typical copper wire. That is your field. And down here you have to set up a negative, and over here you throw in positive, and it'll swim its way through that field, and it will stay in that approximate area. This is why when you're looking at mythological stories, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. He's the communication. He's the trade. Anything that includes going from one to the other, Mercury controls that whole thing. That's the fluid in between the positive and the negative. It's all a three-part system. This is where I was getting at with not understanding what's picking directionality. And I understand what you're saying, that
so understand that same thing that you're seeing going through that solid, that is happening outside of that solid as well. It's just
I know.
the amount of energy that is already collected there is what we are seeing the expression of through that object. So like when Tesla was
still
sending
setting
out
the field. I understand that it's in a little tunnel around the outside. I'm real well aware of that.
Right.
I'm an electrician. I'm real well aware of it.
Right.
But it's still setting the field. I won't have electricity if my wire's over here. That field is like right here and right on top of it. We have little fucking meters that we can just stick right there, and there's power there. Freaking, but it's not out here. It's right. It follows that wire. That wire is setting the field. It's the fluid that's allowing this transaction to happen.
So that experiment done by Golden Gate University and all of the experiments done by Tesla state that you're wrong. That field is actually going outside of it. It's just not expressed until you have that materialistic object that then you can then detect it from. So essentially you're viewing an effect of a current inside of an ocean.
It's all about the motion of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting seminal. We're talking origins. How is baby made?
I'm not disagreeing with the waves in the ocean, a metaphor in any way, shape, or form. Once again, we have a positive. We have the water in this, the liquid in this. Always, it's the liquid that picks up the energetic energy and does that transfer. And the thicker the liquid, the better it transfers. That's just basic science. As soon as you don't have the liquid, which we live in a vapor system, which is liquid, as soon as you lose that, sound doesn't travel, light doesn't travel, none of that kind of thing wants to happen. The everything,
right, because the scalar field, right, because the scalar field makes up what we observe as reality.
So the ether then is the field in and of itself, and it's liquid, and then you have a positive. And my problem with your system, and I understand you're saying that that these have a positive and negative, but everything does. Even if you take just water has a positive and negative. As above, so below. No matter how big or small you take it, it's always going to be able to, if you isolate something, have a positive side and a negative side. It's just the way it works. And so I get that, but there's still got to be something that's in that system, an overall negative, something equal to this overall positive that you're saying, because it's projecting. So it's obviously then going to be the positive side. The same thing with electricity. If I don't have voltage to go out, that amperage, no matter how positive and strong it is not going to come to me.
So the overall negative may be below what we can see. If we're talking about
That's
the
what I was asking you.
somewhat of a plane of inertia type of situation, to where, because if the planet,
Oh, wouldn't
no
we
matter
live
the
on the
shape,
plane of inertia where the two meet?
correct. So below us, what we see as the ground would
Right.
be
The
the
negative.
beginning of the negative. Yes.
Yes. Now we're on the same page. All right. All right.
Okay, so say what you just said again so the rest of the class can catch up.
The Earth is a ground.
I'm standing on
is-
the ground.
Well, not
It
not
is the
not the
negative
Earth where we're
polarity.
standing underneath us, because we would be on the plane of inertia where this positive and negative are balanced out, basically, which is
Right.
the center of the toroid, which is the plane of inertia. That's what we're living on. I call it the carbon plane.
Right. So yeah, so kind of like what I was talking about before, to where every quaternion has a negative and positive polarity. So for example, if our positive polarity is up or north or whatever you want to consider it, the opposite would be more than likely where we can't see.
Now we're
Would
on the
be-
same page. This
yeah,
is what
so it
I've
would
been
be
digging at the whole
internally.
time.
Yeah.
So the
'Cause
carbon.
this is what I'm missing out of your story, And unfortunately, most people, that's missing, period. They don't understand that everything's a descension from positive without understanding the way energy works at all. Because if there
Right.
was just a positive, then with no negative, then that would never project out. It would stay to its fucking self because it's got nowhere to go.
Right.
So the plane of inertia, the carbon plane, that's the place where the babies get made. Right on
Yeah.
the ground.
Maybe
Yeah.
wherever.
Mm.
That's actually,
Phenomenal.
so speaking of water, that's one thing that's interesting. Water, or just liquid in general, is its coherence actually fluctuates.
Yeah.
It is
Because
most-
it's mercury. Mercury doesn't really have a positive or a negative. It can be either. Like that's that's the whole where they kind of give the mercurial figure a feminine aspect. Like that's why, because again, like when you look at it in a battery aspect, as I was talking about, like the transactions between the anode and the cathode, the mercury itself at one point in time is negative, and then at another point in time is positive, just depending on which particles it's transitioning. Is it transitioning things from the anode to the cathode, or the cathode to the anode? And so, the mercury don't give a fuck either way.
So Ben, did you? So now, from your Odinist perspective, did you find Thor in Luke's?
Yes, just now.
Okay.
This whole time I've been digging at it, and I finally got it.
I'm sorry. I thought. See, whenever I was talking about the Earth being a quaternion, so yes, the negative part of it would be underneath us.
Yes, that's why the energy is transitioning this direction. That's what's creating the directionality of it, because underneath us there's a negative, and that's pulling that in, which is also part of why you can charge your seeds with a magnet by putting it on top of a magnet and turning the south side up, so that way it pulls that down and more thoroughly, and kind of like gets it to aim at the fucking seeds.
Yes, it focuses it.
Yeah.
So where was Thor hiding all night?
Not in his presentation. It was hiding from his presentation, but he found him. So apparently it's there. He just didn't explain it.
Yeah, it's I guess I didn't go over it entirely, but yes. So inside of any quaternion,
don't think I'm giving you a hard time.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
The presentation portion of things, like if I could get a quarter out of what goes on in my head, and I've got some fairly elaborate presentations. I got like 15 of them on Crow, and like the one I'd like you to see is my presentation from Flattoberfest, where I laid out the whole system electrically. even better and tied it to the planets. Excellent stuff. But yeah, that putting the presentation together and trying to make what's going on coherent for other people, fucking hard.
Oh, trust me, I just unified physics and I'm trying to express terminology that nobody's ever heard of before.
Yeah, you got to learn to use smaller words if you're going to try and get at the mainstream crowd. I don't know if you were watching the chat in any way, shape, or form, but you could see quite a few people are like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of words I've never heard here. And this is part of why I speak the way I do, where I just kind of hillbilly it down. That way people can kind of understand the mechanics of it. I mean, certainly I enjoyed it and Marcus enjoyed it, but I'm a fucking nerd and I work on things like this. So
I really enjoyed it.
People won't ever have wanted to look at chemistry or the fucking valence shells of atoms or the fucking anything like that.
All right, so if anybody's still here that had a question about a word, put it in the chat right now, and I will try to go over them each by each.
Yeah, they're still listening. Question of the pronunciation and the spelling of the word.
No, we've got an excellent crowd.
It's like
I mean, we don't normally nerd out this hard on them. You guys are gonna have to put up with it. This is the kind of shit. And the best part is, Christy will have me. Well, I'll sit here for like 2 hours and listen to shit like this and all about chemistry and things like that. And then I'll turn around and I'll watch like, farting with eye contact. And Christy's like, what the fuck?
What is that?
Oh, dude, it's like my
dominance.
Lowbrow humor is the only good humor. Like, there's whole videos where dudes walk around with those like fart machines and they'll like walk over at people and like stare them in the eye and then hit the fart button and just like stare them right in the face. And it's hilarious because 99% of people will just look away and just turn their head away. Like, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ones, the dude went to go do it to like a 10-year-old. And this 10-year-old like leaned into it and just kept staring at him. And you could see him trying to grunt one out. I was waiting to see if he shit himself. I was like, don't push that hard, kid. You'll learn the wrong lesson. You'll lose this war.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what she says. She's like, how did you go from that to this? Like, it's balance, baby. It's balance.
I think somebody said, what's the theory? So the theory is called divine emission theory. It's going to be short.
The lentil theory?
DET. Huh?
The lentil theory?
Divine emission theory.
Oh, fuck. It's a joke, brother. It's a joke.
DET. No, I hear people all the time.
The people that listen to me know that I've only eaten lentils like one time. My wife made me lentils. And
I don't even know what it is.
They're a legume of some kind, and it's something that Greek people eat or something. It's not for Middle Eastern people. It's not for white people. Like, it gave me the most horrifying gas I've ever had in my life, and that's
Levitation was
levitation. That's why when you were talking about levitating and stuff, I was like, oh no, it's lentils, because I mean, I had like a 12-hour continuous fart after eating lentils. Like, I've never had anything like it. I thought I was going to explode. Like, holy shit.
That's why our introduction music features burps and farts.
Yeah, she did that to me. And then occasionally I eat too much hot cheese when she's gone, because I do the cooking, and then we got to use all the peppers.
Yeah, I think that's like two of my main food groups is just hot and cheese.
Yes, you would love eating here. That is two of our food groups too.
So you guys are already planning a dinner date together?
Apparently, yes.
Beautiful.
Cheese tour.
Dude, I have a whole cheese drawer in my fridge. That's all just different kinds of cheese.
Yes, too. There's like the good cheese, the better cheese, and the best cheese. And the best cheese always goes so much faster, but you've got to have the backup cheese for when the good cheese comes out.
That Tillamook's good for bulky shit, But then you got to have the nice cheeses. Like I like that Boar's Head four pepper. Oh, that one's good. Yeah, that one's great. And there's their Chipotle Gouda. That one's excellent. That one we like in our broccoli powder.
Hold on. Have y'all had the? I assume since we're all cheese connoisseurs here, have you had the grilled cheese Havarti?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Havarti, dude.
My wife's Danish.
Yeah, I would. I don't know what I'd do for some Havarti. You know.
Thin sliced from the deli. You can ask them to slice it thin, but then you use a lot of slices.
Yeah. Oh, dude, we got there's so I live in Northern California, so we have small dairy is like amazing small local dairy stuff around here. And these one guys have a 4-alarm ghost pepper freaking cheese. It's a cheddar, it's a sharp cheddar and just full of ghost peppers. Oh my God. It's only available like 6 months a year, but so good. Yeah, see, Great White Pope, you're white too. You that lentils are not for white peoples. Yeah, that's pain. Pain.
I think did somebody say something about the spelling of quarter neons?
Yeah.
So it's just quarter, just like normal, and then NIONS.
This is just basic hermetics, you know that, right? Outside of even like the Kabbalion doesn't put the negative side into things, but basically this is just hermetics, and everything just small to big is just one thing.
Right.
I mean, it's not this is where the New Agers get all weird about it. They don't understand that everything's a car. That doesn't mean the transmission is the engine, because at some point fractally in there, you're not exactly the same as this other piece over here, but you're part of a system which matches the smaller system and the smaller system and the bigger system and the bigger system. And it's all the same and it all functions the fucking same.
Right. So just because energy is energy, that doesn't mean that we would, like, there's certain occasions where we would use direct current over alternating current, even though they're both energy.
Yeah.
AC/DC.
Yeah.
School of Rock.
I actually
and you don't get no hertz in DC. So hertz only applies to the AC.
Right.
Now we're talking DC talk. DC.
No, I never talk about your gay black dude.
I don't want to talk about him anymore either.
They tell me that Christianity is supposed to be anti-gay, but Marcus busts out a lot of real gay stuff.
Hey, we're all just
men retreats, stripping on stripper poles to Jesus.
Yeah, it's the private Christian school experience is strange. So
it'll do something to you.
I'm sharing some of those stories a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think that's my overall thing that I've loved the most about this theory is, like, when I set out on this, I had my own conversation with God. I was like, look, you know how I think, you know how I do. Point me in the right direction and I will figure it out. And it all just came into this.
It's dedicating your life to figuring it out.
Yeah. And like, one of my main goals was, even though, like, I have my own faith, let me figure out what is actually going on without putting a bias on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We could have a whole conversation about, religion versus science and, that false dichotomy.
Meanwhile, they both used to be the same.
I really like the part where the shape of the void is in the center of each one. I like that part a lot. Yeah, the cavitation. That's good shit. That's where the life source is. That's the feminine. That's the life source of the whole fucking deal.
Yeah, so that is essentially like, when we're talking about sacred geometry, that is the source of the field itself.
Yeah, the field's the feminine. Yeah.
You were talking about, was it coherence having a 0 to 1 measurement?
Right. So in quantum, there is a factor called decoherence, and it is essentially the opposite of coherence. And I mean, if you think about that logically, if something can decohere, obviously it can be coherent. They use the same scaling factor. It is a unitless number between, and when I say unitless, it means like it's not 1 millimeter, it's not one, joule. It's just one. Um, and they use it the same way from a 0 to 1. There is a possibility that at some point, like when I start getting into different dimensions, I mean, there may be a time to where I have a like negative 0.5, or there may be a time to where I have a 1.5. It is open, but as of right now, it is just 0 to 1.
How does that work with fiber optics, delivering high-speed internet to my computer?
It's about the same.
Okay.
It has a low coherence actually. But all it is just Morse code created by light. That's all fiber optics is.
On and off, in and out, 1 0.
Yeah.
In and out. How was baby made? You haven't answered my question. I've asked you 3 times. How was baby formed with the spark of life giving it consciousness?
That would be the void part in the material.
By a
That's what
pulse.
we're talking about.
So
That's the spark. That's the good stuff right there. That's the magic.
it was just created by a pulse. You know what I mean? Just however you want to take that.
It's the divine emission theory.
Well, that you understand that void is what's causing the positive and negative to come together, and that's what's creating the life, right?
Right.
So because without that field, even though it's liquid, is actually a void. It's representing a void. The original in the origins of the universe, the all splits into the positive and negative, but then that's the pure masculine and the pure feminine. They just balance each other out. So what happens is the masculine splits into a positive and negative. And so that's why there's always got to be that duality. And then the feminine comes in, which is the void, because the masculine side is material and the feminine side is immaterial. And it pulls them 2 sides of the masculine together. That's why that little void's in the center of that. Because if you don't have that feature, the two want to go away from each other. The positive wants to rise and the negative wants to sink. It's fire and ice. And
I call it a null.
Right. Yeah, that's the 0. The feminine.
So a null can be, I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but it can be created through multiple different ways. For example, in Tesla's Colorado Springs experiment, he noticed basically plasma balls being created at these interference points of these rebound waves and the initial pressure waves. It is a cancellation. Now, depending on the effects, depending on the
plane of inertia,
depending on the amplitude of the interaction of like how much deconstructive it is, depends on the size of the null. This is also how you levitate. But I would recommend levitating objects and not yourself, because if you go into a null, you will probably eventually come out and there will be nothing left. If you don't get torn apart inside of there to begin with. But
yeah, no, that's where cavitation happens.
Time stops inside of the null as well.
Yeah.
Whether you want to say it speeds up all the way or it stops, I mean, it's like saying the same thing. So
it's stillness.
Yeah, but we know that they aren't humans, Great White Pope, so you can't count them. Those aren't people.
plasma balls,
I
orbs,
appreciate
ball
the
lightning.
rhyme though, right? Yes, actually, ball lightning itself is a pure scalar aspect. It is a pure scalar phenomena. This is why they have multiple accounts of viewing it, basically going through walls, things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Inside of a null,
Let's go there.
yeah, materials do not interact with each other the same because of difference of coherence values.
Okay. So there's this idea of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's a movie. Now there's this idea of human initiated. That's Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, where a human initiates contact and makes contact with something that.
Are you making out with Stephen Greer again?
Yeah, a little bit.
You knock it the fuck off! Fight over my head. Kick rocks.
It's the motion of the ocean. Their animal instincts, fighting for attention. Are the ducks still in a row?
Yeah, I know the ducks are in the duck house. They go in first. When the crepuscular animals start coming out, like right now, they call it a sitting duck for a reason.
But are they still in a row?
No, they're usually in their bickering right now because there's 3 of them that are sitting on eggs, even though there's no males out there. They've decided they're going to go broody, and them eggs aren't fertilized. But whatever. So the older ones that are doing that are bickering at the younger ones, and we can hear them bickering out there. Chasing the older ones, chasing the younger ones, like, get out of here.
So these seemingly conscious plasmids, these orbs, these lights in the sky.
I would not say that those are the same as ball lightning.
Okay. Visually appearing similar. I'm asking you directly, with your work and experimentation and spirituality and consciousness and all of this, have you attempted to summon orbs in the night sky?
No, I have not.
Why
Because
not?
I haven't mapped out what all that looks like. So, for example,
That's what it would look. It would look real wizardly. That's what it would look like.
Now I have gone over like some UFO like videos and stuff like that, and I will say that most of them actually seem to be working off of advanced, or what you could say capped out electromagnetism. If you were to create something similar that works off of scalar effects. So for example, electromagnetism or magnetism and electricity separated, these are side effects from scalar interactions. So when we're talking about an actual scalar craft, it can change its shape, which I know some UFOs do, but a majority of them do not. It can, like, speed is not an object, or it's not a thing. It doesn't really matter. So when we're talking about null manipulation inside of scalar, technology, you don't have inertia. You don't have, what's it called? Fucking G-force. You don't have things like that. So the very few of them, like, you have some that travel fast. You have some that travel insanely fast, that do some type of maneuvers that if there is something biological in there, they're obviously getting torn to shreds. It's just a matter of looking at it and seeing whether it is doing scalar type maneuvers or whether it is doing just electromagnetic maneuvers.
I know the GeForce is a brand of NVIDIA video cards.
I have one on my computer right now, yes.
Okay, I was going to ask that, Intel, or what's the other chip manufacturer?
Ryzen.
Ryzen.
Yep. So I have a 2070.
I always
Super.
wondered if it was able to find some type of a non-Euclidean wave.
Yes. So these basically what Tesla was doing.
You know what I'm saying? If it gets inside of a bubble in a non-Euclidean wave, fucking, you know, even though for us in a Euclidean system, that jump, it looks like it jumped a giant space in no time. In a non-Euclidean system, that distance was actually like right next to each other. You know what I mean?
So is this? I'm trying to think. Does this have to do with space time?
Oh, it's fair. We've stretched your brain as far as I can go.
No, it's structuring. Like it's just the way things are structured. Non-Euclidean, like point A and point B.
Ninja cat.
Yeah,
I was about to say I'm fully expect a fully drove ninja cat to just like slowly rise up behind you now.
Yeah,
it's happened before. It'll happen again.
It's crazy over here. I live off grid on a farm.
Check out the Colorado locust when Tesla was doing his experiments. I'm curious, what is that? Colorado locust, yeah.
Nacho cheese. That's nacho cheese. That's my cheese.
Chips and dip. Hip dip. Think so. We finally figured out how babies are made.
That's good for queso cheese.
Kind of look. Am I not able to scroll up in the chat?
Well, we've got.
Not on that thing in the screen. You can't. Steve, I think, is the only one who has access to that. And Steve wasn't feeling good and went to bed right away.
It's a video overlay of a combined number of chats. There's a number of chats that are combined into one little visual overlay.
Yeah, like our Rumble's our biggest one by far, and then we're on mine, and then on Deliberating Dogface Dudes.
Yeah, send me an email, thankful1l at alanmarcus2ls.com. Thankful at alanmarcus.com. Send me the diagrams, the pictures, the descriptions, the questions, that sort of thing. Right now, we're just doing a radio show, just talking. To produce a video show requires a lot more, and we don't have all the visual aids prepared yet, so that's kind of where we are in the process.
Extincted that insect. Huh.
Interesting.
So
see, I assumed that there had to have been some kind of damage caused by some of the things he was doing.
Oh yeah,
like,
when we're talking about Tesla, if there was ever an individual that said just send it, that was Tesla.
Yeah, he killed himself like 3 times, and not like suicide type. Like, oops, had an oops in the lab like 3 different times, and I think once it was for quite a duration, and that's actually where he when he came back from that little episode, I believe was when he said that he had spoken to the Black Knight. He said that there was a ship called Black Knight, and that it was basically floating around above our atmosphere.
Yeah, the Black Knight satellite.
Yeah, the Black Knight satellite, and he said he communicated with it, but you know he was dead. So like just for a little while, But yeah, anytime you're, and this is always one of my concerns. This is also one of my concerns with the wind towers for generating energy and even water turbines. Anytime you start fucking around with that field and disrupting it, like there's a reason that rivers, they don't flow straight. If you ever watch Wilhelm Reich's work, he sat and looked at the way rivers naturally flow, and they have an oscillation back and forth. And if you disrupt that whole system, it just kills the water. And so the same thing's going to apply with air. The reason that's why it's called air currents. even though it's not in its liquid form. That's still liquid, basically. It's just vaporized liquid, and it still flows.
It's part of liquid theory, yeah.
Yeah, and if you go fucking that up, then you're definitely going to kill things in that system. Well, Tesla was drawing energy similar to the way when you're putting a magnet in on putting seeds on top of it, and you're pulling more, you're getting that energy to focus. He was doing it in a much more significant fashion, and some life forms are not going to be cool with that. With that concentration.
Blowing holes. He was blowing holes in the scalar field. I will full out admit this.
Yeah.
That's why in this theory there are actually ethical like standards that I have implemented in the theory, because I know exactly what can be done and what might be done. That's why in the part where we're talking about nulls, there has to be dampening factors. There has to be basically emergency shutoffs. There has to be some kind of containment, because if you think about it, if you create a null, which is essentially a scalar sink, what is going to happen?
Sink as an S-I-N-K, like the thing in the kitchen.
Yes. So what does a sink do?
Well, the All Mother does two things. She gives life and she takes life away. So there's a destruction aspect to it and a life-giving aspect to it. And which one are you dealing with?
So a sink drains. So if you create a scalar sink before I have a stroke, if you create a scalar sink, you are going to have a surge of energy draining.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have created a hole. If you created a hole, well, now everything else around it is going to rush in. If you do not stabilize and equalize, you will have the Bermuda Triangle. You will have the Devil's Triangle. You will have a similar event that is proposed to have happened to Atlantis. You are affecting your local gravity.
Well, you're creating a cavitation.
Yes. Yes, the null and the cavitation, from what you're saying, they're the same thing.
Well, when you look at any, like, that's one of the problems that you get in like different like pumps and things like that. Like if you don't have your flow set up right, it creates a cavitation where it's literally a void, and that will create an explosion. Like,
yes. For example,
like in a motor, you're literally creating a cavitation between the electrical and the field that it creates with the magnetism, and you're creating a cavitation between them. You're just harnessing that shit.
Right. So actually, what you're talking about is directly the reason why, for example, crystals grow in the shape that they do. It is because of null interactions between the elements that make up the quartz crystal and the pressure waves that they give out. Geometrically, they create natural nulls. This is why we have the shape of crystals being the way that they are.
Yeah. And this is when you're talking about so like in different cultures, I had a fascinating talk. I think it was with Emily Moyer. It might have been with Cheney though. But they were talking about Indian healing, and the story was pretty complex, but he had to go do something with like a scorpion because the energy of the wound that she had was to this specific goddess. Well, the idea then is like I was talking about with uranium and lead, everything in that chain is the same thing. So if you called like the overall head of that, gave it a name, everything in that would be in its purview. And so the same thing applies to like different things in your body and whatnot. And so what is your illness? What is the imbalance in? And so that's what they're looking, and they have an understanding for this. They just list it as gods and goddesses names. And I think most all of them do.
Right,
Super
I can see
fascinating.
that. Yeah.
Just realize we got layers of jokes and humor and seriousness, and getting a little bit silly, getting a little bit serious. We're talking about graphics cards. The NVIDIA cards are called the GeForce.
We were talking about graphics cards. When the fuck did that happen?
When we discussed the GeForce, I said NVIDIA's brand of graphics cards are the GeForce cards, and then there are the Ryzen's.
Well, the Ryzen's are the processors.
And someone asked if Ryzen.
Well, actually, yeah,
was
they got
poisonous.
Ryzen. Yeah, they got Ryzen graphic card too. I forgot about Radeon.
Yeah, Radeon's. What is Radeon graphics cards, GeForce? A lot of the brand names are using some of these names to sell.
I
their
feel like it was
graphics
with
cards.
Emily also, Sheree. That was my initial thought on it. It was with Emily.
Could be. We have the transcripts. We can go back and review the transcripts to see where the conversation happens. But a lot of times the conversations will start one place and then move to another channel another time, and then we'll just keep talking about the same things again and further develop them and look at them from different perspectives. So thank you, Luke, for giving us all this time. I don't know.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
How much time
Absolutely,
you'd
no
have
problem.
tonight.
I would say I got probably just a little bit more time.
Okay, I mean, there's some nights you've gone 6 or 7 or 8 hours, so we're not going to keep you that long unless.
No, you don't let us hold you. You've 2 hours is what we hopefully expect out of guests. You've given us, almost 3 now. So don't feel beholden like you need to get more if you're pooped out.
Well, the main thing is to make sure that I answer all of the questions. All the questions that you
My
have.
only problem is I'm coming up with questions I never thought to ask before. And I don't know if you're having fun coming up with answers to nonsense questions I'm asking, but you've been a great sport.
Once we got to the place of understanding that there's a negative below us, that's then we're on the same page fully. That's about all I was digging at the whole time. Because that's creating the directionality of the whole thing. And then the field is what's in between.
Absolutely.
That's
and we are condensed versions of that energy transferring. And as we break apart, it'll keep on moving on.
Yeah, so some people pronounce Washington as Washington. We're having this R issue in the quaternions. Okay. Say it again.
Quarter neons, QUARTERNION.
And Chad is upset that this is the first time for many that they've ever heard of this.
This is the kind of stuff I talk about regularly. The funny thing is if it's just me and I'm a guest on somebody else's show, I talk about a lot of stuff like this, or like my presentation in Flattoberfest, things like that. But if I'm doing stuff like this, it's, people only to a limited extent want to hear a person talk like this. Like most people, that's it's surprising we've got such a good crowd that we've maintained most of our people through most of the night. And a lot of them will come back and rewatch it, like Christy Krinkle, Pink Hand Wave. She watches it probably an hour a day or something and leaves comments like every other day. She's very helpful with stuff. But yeah, that's a lot of crowds wouldn't even hang for this kind of thing. Usually a lot.
Yeah, so if you want to visualize a quarter neon in the best way, it is just to visualize it as a gyroscope. There's 3 rotational aspects with 1 scalar aspect.
So I have a camera mount. They call it like a steady cam. And the whole point of it's on a gimbal. So it tries to find its level. So when you're walking and moving with the camera, it keeps the camera steady. They call it a steady cam. It's just kind of what we're talking about with the gyroscopes and the gimbals.
Cycryption, that's clever. I can't highlight it, but I would. 25-cent neons, 5 for $1.
That's fair. That's fair. So it doesn't have that lock. This is why it pretty much encompasses all of the geometric shapes that they've been trying to circle back to for forever. I mean, arguably like the past, over 100 years at this point in time.
So it doesn't lock itself on a level where it has up and down and it just stays steady with the plane of, I guess, the ground we're standing on.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, we lost Rose. All right, Rose.
It's been
Love
3
you.
hours. Thank you, Rose.
Good night.
Yep. So you've written a paper, published it, made it public.
So it's on, I mean, obviously, I refuse to do latex formatting.
Right.
Which is
This
what
is nerd talk. I'm into the nerd talk. I love the latex.
Yeah. So I refuse to do that. So the theory is on OSF and it is on GitHub.
Okay. So GitHub is where all the cool computer nerds hang out and share code with each other. And the LATX format is how you publish text with numbers and, lowercase, higher case, to 3rd degree and all the weird symbols and things that people use in mathematics.
Parentheses and
yes,
underscores. And,
yes.
yeah. So I would rather not do that. And then also it's kind of like a weird area because most of the time they require I guess Ligarian vector formatting or equations, which I bypass that. If anybody's wondering what that means, it's basically like just angular formatting of how things work. Quarter neons themselves do not need that.
Do you get into Vim or Emacs?
No.
Okay. Computer nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know any of that stuff.
It's just all. I'm doing it the original way, where back in the day,
Chalkboard.
Yeah, they just wrote it out.
Yeah.
That's what I did. You can see the equations. So I do have an entire section for definitions. I have an entire equation layout. So as of right now, there are in the larger theory there are 158 equations. There's the definition that goes through all of them. I tried originally to make a linear path to go through the paper, but realistically, when we're talking about a unifying field theory, it's very hard to be linear. It just kind of I start you out with the field, the variables, and then you can just branch out to whatever part you want to look at. Then you can go to a different section. You can go to a different section. So as of right now, I'm gonna just start throwing out words. So if anybody is listening, just know that I'm gonna be throwing out words. So I have, of course, the abstract and the introduction. I have a introduction to the power of light. I have revisiting Newtonian dynamics and field equations and all that. implement the DET framework. Then going after that, we get into time, we get into scalar memory. After that, we go into scalar electromagnetism. Continuing with magnetism, going into the magnetic twist, going into electromagnetic dynamics, which means fields, flow, and emission pressure, going into electromagnetism and scalar emission, basically rebuilding Maxwell's work from field causality. The official revival of Maxwell's quaternions, then go into Tesla rebound, magnetic curl, coherence nulls, going into fluid mechanics, going into thermal pressure, the nature of heat, what exactly makes it, what exactly it is, even going into black body radiation, going into thermal pressure and heat transfer, which is entropy, radiation, and scalar flow. Going deeper into fluid mechanics to where we're talking about vortices, buoyancy, lift, and atmospheric flow, then going into acoustic and pressure wave reinterpretation through sound compression and coherence travel, going into echo, Doppler, and shifts as memory delay, going into nuclear field dynamics, going into fission and fusion about what is actually happening there. There is field ethics and containment in there. Then we get to quantum reinterpretation between coherence, collapse, and wave particle logic, going into AC and DC currents, going in directly, no pun intended, to DC currents, going directly into AC currents, fluid mechanics as far as scalar compression, vorticity, and pressure displacement. Going further into thermodynamics with emission gradients, scalar decay, and rebound decay. Then we get to actual particle masses and deriving all of the particle masses, as well as going into the periodic table. Then I go into basically historical glimpses of scalar fields, where we're talking about Faraday, Heaviside, Hertz, Lorentz, Ampere, Joule, Henry, Biot, and I don't know how to say his name, Jean-Baptiste Biot, Felix Savant, Paul Dirac, going into Michael Pupin, Augustin Jean Fresnel, Ernest Mach, Richard Feynman, John Tyndall, even giving out a shout out to their wives, because a lot of their wives actually did help with them. I provide 5 falsifiable experiments. It was very difficult to do this because most of the empirical data already lined up with this theory pretty close to where I didn't feel like it was fair to use that as a falsifiable experiment. So we go into delay in light propagation. Yes, it's pretty much already aiming in this theory's favor. We go into null levitation. We go into delay quantum collapse via coherence reinforcement. Sadly, this is already leaning in my favor. Scalar field perception during DMT exposure. I decided to throw a little bit of a left curve in there. Go into radioactive decay drift in scalar null zones. Then we finally get to the citations, and then we get into the DET terms and definitions, then the DET index, the equation index, and then I get to the very end where I give like a little outro, which basically says, "Do not turn me into Oppenheimer, please." Give his little quote at the end.
Did you watch Barbenheimer?
I have not, actually.
So I think everything you just covered there, we've talked about tonight. We didn't really get into echo or Doppler or fission or fusion. Might have to save that for a second date.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so I have made fusion and fission a lot less energy dependent and a lot easier. This is exactly why I gave my Oppenheimer quote. Here I can it's like a little personal message from me at the end where I go, the true implications of DET are still yet to be fully explored. I have hope that many will explore everything that it has to offer. The beauty and balance that DET bring to the world will be one of its most powerful tools. I would personally like to thank some of the inspirations that led me on this amazing adventure, my fiance, family, and close friends, while always being or will always be a very deep inspiration behind anything that I embark on. Their guidance and support will always be a deep well of strength and determination behind anything that I do. I would like to thank the guys over at Cult of Conspiracy because they were the first ones to give me a voice, basically. And then as well as Joe and his group over at Legit Bat, stating,
He's
and I
gay
mean, you
though.
guys, huh?
He's gay though.
Total homo.
Little homo.
Basically going on, and then y'all are
Somebody
involved in
tell
this.
his wife. I love Joe.
Yeah, dude,
we hang out. We hang out in person.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Joe. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
in
we only.
all honesty, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I go over to Reading fairly often, so we hang out occasionally.
Right.
It's a Cult of Conspiracy with Jonathan and Jacob.
Yeah.
Okay. They have a great podcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What
absolutely.
episode were you on? Is it released?
So so the one we just released, which was
871.
I think so.
Can a new science emerge by combining conventional, quantum, and classic science with Luke from August 5th?
Yes.
Yeah, recent number 871. Cult
So
of
before
Conspiracy.
that, I was also on for 4 different episodes where and this was a while back, to where we go through basically all the things that are wrong with the current models.
Okay.
All the way from the edge of the universe to here. But then and y'all are encompassed in this next part, which is individuals like these, what most would call fringe, conspiracy, or skeptics, are the ones that push beyond the standard, ones that will not accept a default as definitive. I encourage more out there, especially ones that carry significance, to embrace this kind of mentality. Do not accept what is easiest, rather search for the truth even when it is difficult. I would also like to thank God for guiding me on this journey. I truly could not have done it without his guidance and help. He has always and will always be an inspiration and blessing to me. Before this ends, there is possibly the most important topic to discuss. DET under no circumstances should or will in its entirety be weaponized or used as a weapon. We as humans have seen wondrous discoveries and inventions turned into nightmares. This is what DET stands, or this is not what DET stands for, nor will it ever. DET aims for the opposite. Lastly, I will leave you with a quote, one that I recommend all to remember and hold each other accountable for. Now I am death, the destroyer of worlds. J. Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
This is it's never the purpose of this theory. It is actually quite the opposite.
It's a good theory. I think we could workshop the name a little bit. DET sounds like a bug spray I spray on me. Keeps mosquitoes away.
Hey, you could use it as that too. Who knows what new technology will come out.
Yeah, we'll have to workshop a really good title. GeForce is already taken. NVIDIA uses that.
Thank you for coming on and explaining your theory for us.
Oh, absolutely, no problem.
pleasure.
Absolutely no problem. I'm working through trying to, like, obviously I had to word this theory in order to get the attention of the, the institutional world, the academic world, the scientific world. I am now trying to figure out ways to translate it to everybody else. The
Yeah,
ones
you
that,
better dumb it down for the podcast world, bro.
yeah, I, so I'm trying to simplify
I'm in a
it.
little bit of shock that Crow agreed to let you do this.
Yeah.
Crow flat told me to my face that I'm too smart to talk to people because he didn't think I was dumbing down what I say enough.
Yeah, me and Rose are working on ways to translate it. That's what
Yeah. Talk about cheese and baby making.
I know,
Maybe
right?
add some beer into it, and people will be listening real close to it.
So I think some of the best ways to describe it is just think of a pond and you have ripples in the pond.
Hmm.
Um,
I
these
was thinking of a
ripples.
seed spreader I have. I got some patches in my lawn I need to fill with the seed spreader. I
We
kind
don't
of
want to hear about your seed spreader, Marcus. Don't get pervy.
So we're not going to talk about Stephen Greer anymore tonight.
That's what
what
he did. He just
so
wants to
I,
have sex with an alien.
I will say this, and I will continue to say this. After looking over everything, right? Like after being a part of the what you could call the like conspiracy community, right? And then trying to take a non-biased lens to science, to physics, whether we're talking about quantum, whether we're talking about relativity, whether we're talking about classical, I would say that for the scientific community, they need to interact more. They need to talk to people, especially among this community. They need to
Yeah.
come up with actual, like, I wouldn't say definitive answers, but if you don't know, then just say you don't know. You know what I mean? Um, I would say to entertain different ideas, work through it, see what could work, what couldn't work. On the other side, I will wholeheartedly tell the conspiracy community that I can completely see why science has gotten in the direction that it is currently at. After looking through basically the history, the generations, I can see how 5 generations back there was the split, and this is why we have the, I wouldn't say inconsistency with science. I would say this is why we have the direction that science went. For example, when we're talking about quantum, they had to rely on probability because they did not have any structure. Relativity, they had to rely on geometry because they did not have energy. I see why they went in the direction that they did. And to them, and I'll agree, they're maths. And the simplest way to say it, they're maths. But when you circle back around and look at the bigger picture, you can see why their math does math correctly. You can see why they came to the conclusions that they did. I wouldn't say that they are, I mean, for the most part, the individual scientists, right? They are not, I mean, obviously not evil people. They are not people that are trying to necessarily defend a narrative. They have the data in front of them and they have what they've worked out. So to them, yes, this is the truth. But this is where it takes the relationship between both communities of them understanding, yes, you could be wrong. Your interpretation was wrong. You could really say that all I did here was just put together the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, you could honestly say that that's all I really did. Um, But then
So
it's
you are Satoshi Nakamoto, and you invented Bitcoin.
Carat is
No.
actually a weight of metal, and when they're saying 24 carats in that 1 gram, then inside 1 gram there's going to be more carats.
So
And then there's grains also.
putting
There's
together
your
the pieces of
dimension.
the diamond puzzle, the carats, the piezoelectric, the Atlantis bit was really fascinating. That's really interesting to get into maybe further. You have a whole section of the history of this on your GitHub page in your paper.
Yeah, so in the major paper there is the scalar history. There is not the breakdown lineage of like how everything got separated. It's there. It's just not like grouped together, I guess you could say. It is a separate paper that I kind of made for like a introduction to talking and all that stuff.
Yeah, that seems to be like if when I'm trying to get into this further, I would want to dive into more of the history and researching the other figures that we talked about, Hertz and Maxwell, and a little bit more Planck and some of the science and the philosophy, just to understand that a little bit, to kind of catch up to where we are now, and having that information, you put some pieces together and things seem to make a little bit more sense.
Right.
Now you're having the technology and the internet access to do this call and share this with everyone who's listening, and now we're recording it and making the archive available for people to play back and listen.
Right. Yeah, that's why on this theory I could have patented the shit out of anything that I wanted to. I didn't, and I'm not going to. There is like just ethical rules put into the paper to make sure that nobody, destroys everything. But
Patenting it is how you get suicided.
yeah, that was one of the that was probably the second main reason that I didn't do anything like that.
So are you acting pseudo anonymously right now, just sort of anonymous, using a
No,
name?
I have my name on it.
Okay. That was a question we had. Like, Luke, who does he have a last name? Does he have a middle name? Does he have identification? Who is this guy? This mysterious Luke figure sounds biblical. Is he an apostle? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
I think it's A. Mares. Yes. So Maxwell currently is considered to be the father of electromagnetism. And in his original treaty in 1865, that was whenever he introduced his quaternion equation.
James Clerk Maxwell, Scottish physicist.
Yeah,
So
very.
there's a whole lot of names here. I know we have some listeners who are into like homeschooling and unschooling and this type of thing, getting in young people interested in all these ideas, researching these guys like James C. Maxwell, and their wives are important too. You mentioned their wives, so that's a whole interesting thing. There's a whole story here that we're just scratching at the surface of.
Yeah, that's what I mean, with how large this theory is, like I wanted to put the entire story in there. Like, for example, the wives that did help out. Like obviously I wanted to give them credit where credit is due. I mean, even I think so like Faraday's wife, it was noted that she didn't necessarily help with any of the experiments themselves, but she basically kept his what you could consider his lab or whatever. She kept that clean and kept all of his notes and his papers organized. Like, that's for somebody that has a chaotic mind like mine. I know that, if she didn't do what she did, we might have never gotten Faraday's work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might have just been a bunch of balled up papers on a floor somewhere that eventually just got lost to time. So in my opinion, she's just as important as anybody else.
So just in my brief research that I've had between questions and listening, I find that James Clerk Maxwell did work on color vision, finding the theory of human eye perception with the 3 types of receptors: red, green, and blue light, which eventually led to color photography and video and everything we're looking at right now.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Detachable penis. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, I had the lyrics to click, click, boom, saliva. Fly in this.
Oh, dude. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought you were going to say Boom Boom Tel Aviv. I don't know.
Oh, I was about to sing a Boom Boom Tel Aviv, but I exercised some restraint. It's like click, click, boom, like a camera, like click, click, click. Like the shutter on the camera. I'm a photographer.
Well, the older one, I mean, there was a boom at the end.
Boom Boom Tel Aviv.
Oh, fuck. That's so bad. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious. That's immediately where my mind went.
All right. So, is there any other questions that y'all have?
We're just trying to goof around a little bit, kind of
No,
online.
you're good. You're good.
No, we'd definitely like to talk to you again and pepper you with some more questions, but I think we probably burnt most everybody out for the highly intelligent stuff. I think Duck ducked out like within like 2 minutes, probably. He's like, nope. That's what these guys talk about. Fuck that.
Yeah, it's peeping over on Duck's channel. I think he was asking the questions he's always asking about presidentials and politics and stuff.
Yeah, he's. We want to debate this guy. Marcus wants to debate this guy, Duck, and he's always. But the guy's very into politics. That's what he talks about. So this was definitely not in his wheelhouse.
Right.
Talking about 2 failed presidencies of a guy who eats a lot of McDonald's. I think it's like, well,
he's like super into cheering for one side of the PDF files. Like, I like this team. Like, you like one of them teams? Weird.
Honestly, at this point in time, things are a lot different these days.
Yeah. Getting into these hard sciences and ferrofluids and mercury and all these things can just take up your time in a good way, and some politics take up your time in a bad way. So we're getting into this era of wanting to have more fun and more joy, and find out how babies are made and get people making babies and having fun and dancing. And
Marcus is very curious about this. He's a budding young man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all right. That's all right. I mean, basically, the way I see it, the more people that know about this theory in general, the better off it is.
I like it. Like I said, you need to work into there that there is a negative side that's drawing it. Because I think, well, I'm probably about the only person that was going to catch that.
Yeah, so anytime the quarter neon has a torsional aspect to it, there will always be. So it's the toroid. So every toroid that you see has a scalar gyroscope inside of it, to where there is a positive and there is a negative. It is how magnetism naturally forms due to the energetic curl or the energetic torsion. It's the magnetic curl that follows with it.
Yeah, I don't know how many other people were going to catch that problem in the presentation, but like for me, it was specific because it left Thor out of the equation specifically. And I'm like, well, you can't leave Thor out. He's the negative. Odin's the in between. He's the
and that's what
he's the.
I thought I had said that, but maybe I got sidetracked with something else whenever I was saying it.
It's okay. We're in the sidetrack portion of the show where we're just trying to find tangents to go on and make jokes about things. And
yeah, he's the thing that's binding the two things together. That's why Odin is the king of the Aesir and the Vanir, because he's binding those two things together.
Right.
He's doing the Mercury action, the void action.
This is the type of thing that I really enjoy. Have you thought of starting like an OnlyFans to get this word out?
I gotta
I mean, it's
figure
big. People
out.
are making a lot of money from this Patreon
Yeah.
and OnlyFans, and
I gotta figure out how to see because of the way quarter neons work. They're very even on all sides, so I gotta figure out like how to get a good side of it.
get a good angle.
Yeah.
How you feeling? Not great.
Build some. So we need to get some more marshmallows and toothpicks and build some trees with branches and show people that stuff. For the visual learners, the tactile learners, different learning styles need to be accommodated. We did a lot of radio and talking tonight. So long as we can spell the words properly and put the R in the right place. Quadenine?
And quarter neons.
No. I'm from Australia, and I'm going to pronounce it Quadenine.
Alright,
Quadenine, mate.
I grew up in
Quadenine.
a very small town in Virginia that like I graduated with 86 people.
Okay.
So like I say a lot of words weird too, like mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the Slater? Where's your Slater onesie?
I was making fun of Manosphere Men Mystery and Rollo Tomasi, and they were both wearing like, t-shirts with their sleeves cut off. And I'm like, I don't want to show people my armpits all of the time for free. That's what the OnlyFans is for.
Gotta give them something to pay for. If you give them the whole show for free, then nobody pays for the milk, takes care of the cow if they can get the milk for free. That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Big market on Marcus's armpit hair.
All right. So with that,
He's like, I'm fucking out of here at that.
Yeah. I'll probably send the
You got the email
I
there
can-
on the screen. Send an email with some of the information so we can throw it in the show notes. People are going
We
to look for that.
greatly appreciate your time, Luke.
Oh,
It was a
absolutely. No
pleasure
problem.
talking to you.
No problem at all. Let me get this email down real quick, and then
Yeah.
I'll give you the link to
Sure.
all of it.
Sure. When your Crow episode goes live, we'll be sure to let everybody know and promote that so people can hear that. You've been on other shows. Cult of Conspiracy, we'll have to connect with those guys. We've talked with the Legit Bat Crew on a different stream before. Mm-hmm. Of course, Crow we've talked with. Rose we've talked with. Jason as well. Click, click, boom.
All right, yeah. So whenever I got your email down now. Whenever I get
Mhm.
the chance, I will I'll send you the link to the theory and all that stuff. I'll probably send it to you for the OSF just because it's a little bit easier to navigate, unless you just like navigating GitHub.
Oh, I love GitHub. I lose hours on GitHub. I don't know what any of it means, but I just keep clicking and browsing and reading. Wow, my computer can do this.
Yeah, right.
A lot of good code there.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, everybody, thank y'all for having me, and thank everybody else for listening.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
Thank
You
you
have an
guys.
excellent night, brother.
Y'all too.
No, I don't got overalls on right now. I wasn't scooping shit today. My shirt is purple, though. It looks very blue in my...
It's so weird. I was noticing that earlier, even in the daylight. It looked blue.
Yeah, it looks very blue in the camera.
It's the optical illusion. There's the Ninja Cat.
Yeah.
So Duck I saw started a stream. He jumped into chat, said hey, and then left and started his own stream, and then ended his stream. And we're still streaming. So if Duck has checked back in, send me an email. We need a confirmation. We need more than a sure. We need a be assured with a confirmation email to say yeah, so we can set you on a date because we have a guest next week. So I think we have to confirm that. We're always trying to confirm guests.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Yeah. It's like the baptismal water. It's free. You can just go and refill your water jugs. They never
Thank you,
stop.
Jay.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
I think we'll keep the Rumble chat open a little bit longer, but I think we're going to say goodnight to the YouTubes.
Yeah, it's about that time, guys. That was a heavy one. That was real good stuff. Next week, we're talking Danny Katz. So that's going to be a good time. Animal show and tell time. Well, the one sitting on me right now is I call him Scar. I think he looks like Scar from The Lion King. Then Cutest has always got it. But Bubba's on the floor over here with Freya. Him and Freya have become best friends. Freya is like she is the wildest little pit bull. She's always off running off, getting into trouble somewhere. And Bubba is so Bubba gets along with everybody. We got to keep our two big males that were both of them had their nuts. So we had to keep those guys separated and then the two females separated. And but Bubba gets along with everybody. Well, Bubba starts out the morning with Freya and Lickus, and he runs them ragged, and then they go up at lunchtime and they take a nap from about noon till 8. And then he flips around, and from noon to 8, he runs Tyr and Issa ragged. Quit trying to get in front of the camera. Stop.
Good night, Delivering Dogface Dude's YouTube channel. We're going to be on Balderson's channel for a little while longer.
And then we go